Thank you for calling the Bombas Comfort Line. Bombas make socks, slippers, tees, and underwear made with the highest quality materials. Press 1 for comfort, 2 for style, 3 for donation. You chose style. Bombas has styles for whatever you enjoy. You can run in Bombas, lounge in Bombas, dress them up, dress them down, but always give back in Bombas. Because with every item purchased, another is donated. Bombas, comfort worth calling for. Go to bombas.com/audio and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
構成藤田 Listening Keeping Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll preview the new beginning in Osaka and cover all this news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network and Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice, leaving a rating and review. You also get all the latest podcasts and newsletter over at socialsuplex.com. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And we are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style. If you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy, how you doing, man?
You do want to watch this live. You do want to join the $5 tier and be part of the community. I'm doing all right. You know what? I'm a little annoyed. You sent me this. It's not your fault, but you sent me this, the Google Docs for the rundown for today's show. And, it is your fault. You have not given me access to the document.
Yeah, I did.
That's not what it's saying.
Josh B, that email?
Well, that's not the one I typically use, but, you sent me something to Messenger. I went to go open it and it's saying I don't have access. So maybe I'll go to the Gmail, but
oh, okay. I see what happened here.
Yeah, see? Which is very rare. It was making me sign in, and then it was making me come up with a 2-step verification and a recovery email, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I never have to do this stuff. But
try again now.
I mean, I feel like here we go. Okay. KISS 428 run sheet. Good to go. So, with that being said, it's very clear and apparent I have not looked at the run sheet for this week's episode. However, it is just a preview show this week, so we will be, doing our preview of, New Beginning. And wait a second, was there a Road to yesterday?
There was, and I'm pretty sure it was a late edition as far as it being televised. Because I started seeing clips on Twitter, and I was like, I could have swore the Corkins were the last ones. And then I went on New Japan World. I was like, oh, there's a show. But there was like no VTR video. They had like no graphics. It was like it was only Japanese commentary. It was like very stripped down production.
I do a very good job staying on top. I frequently go to the New Japan World schedule to see what's going to be broadcast. I didn't see. I'm literally like,
I'm pretty sure they added it late, because I checked the New Japan World schedule too, and I saw the Corkins being the last ones. But I think because it was Hiromu's last singles match, I think they made the call to make it live.
His last singles match is not on New Beginning in Osaka.
He's in a tag match.
Bro, oh my God. For some reason, I knew he was wrestling Yasuda. And for some reason, you know what I thought? I thought that they were changing the tag match to the singles match. I have not watched the show. I didn't even fucking know, bro. Like, what? No one told me. What the hell?
I figured you would have seen it, but yeah, honestly, you didn't miss much. I mean, besides the Hiromu match, besides that, it was pretty much more.
I am gobsmacked right now. I'm not gonna sit here and say I've never come on the show and missed something, but every time that's ever happened, which is few and far between, but if it's ever happened, it was, I wouldn't say intentional, but it was.
You're making a choice.
I was making a choice.
Like, I'm out of time or something came up and I can't watch it.
Right. I've never missed a show that I just didn't fucking know was happening. I can't believe.
Well, because I was like scrolling Twitter and I started seeing like translations from Jake Lee and I'm like, oh, maybe the press conference happened.
Oh my!
And then I started scrolling more, and I'm like seeing clips of matches. I'm like, wait, what is happening right now?
Yeah, there was a question in the Discord, and I was like, wait a second, overtures. What are we talking about here? Am I missing something? I think it's starting to make sense that clearly I did. I missed an entire show.
Well, yeah, we can run through the results real quick, and I can kind of.
Oh my God, I'm gobsmacked. I'm literally blown.
Before we do that, we did have a question here from Half Mortal 72 saying, I've really enjoyed listening to the new Joshing Around podcast. Feels exactly what I was looking for as far as Joshi coverage goes. Could you give a brief description of the other podcasts on your network as well as which wrestling shows they cover? I'd love to give some more shows a chance with how awesome you guys and Joshing Around have been so far. So a quick rundown, like he mentioned, Joshing Around. So if you are a big Joshi wrestling fan, it's a newest show to the network. Tim and Eric every week, like we mentioned, they're covering every promotion in the Joshi world. Great long form, 3.5, 4 hour episodes. They are covering everything. So if you really want to dive into several Joshi promotions, get full Joshi coverage, that's your podcast you want to go to. We also have One Nation Radio with Rich Latta and James Boyd, and they kind of cover everything or whatever they kind of feel like covering that week. As of late, they're probably more AEW heavy, but they do cover a lot of the top stories that are happening in WWE and some of the bigger wrestling stories. Also, there's a lot of pop culture, a lot of basketball, a lot of music talk on there as well. We got All Things Elite, the first ever AEW podcast on the network, hosted by Floyd and Austin. So that's weekly AEW coverage there for you. We got Trish and Sarah, the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. So that's very heavy news base, a lot of numbers, a lot of breakdowns. Trish was the one who wrote that article in the newsletter, kind of breaking down what went down between the Tanahashi retirement opponent on socialsuplex.com. Then we got Tunnel Talk, another AEW podcast, more of a kind of funny way of looking at wrestling. Some, Allie, Ann, and Leah, some newer wrestling fans in the last few years. And so it's kind of a different spin on how maybe a traditional, person would view wrestling. But they are hilarious, a really great podcast. We got Imp's AEW Adventure. So our man Imp over in the UK, another AEW podcast. And then we got Wrestling Art with Chris Things. So Chris Things is a wrestling artist, and he's done some indie wrestling. And so he does artwork for matches. He talks about the matches, has some different artists on there. I think one of the most underrated shows on our network. Also definitely a great one to check out.
Not by me, I rate it.
and you've been on there several times.
Yeah, Chris is a good friend. Really dig his artwork. Purchased several of the books that he has illustrated. I think I've got 3 at this point. 2 were Way of the Blade books, and 1 was Chris Things Year 1. So, like you mentioned, he does a weekly art that's wrestling related, and then does a podcast sort of like reviewing the matches and talking about the art. And he compiled every single artwork that he did for the first 52 weeks of the first year he started this and compiled that into a book. And I own it. Pretty cool. I don't have much more to add. I mean, I could, but I feel like you did a really good rundown of, the different shows on our network. I'm at the point where I feel we need somebody to learn Spanish and commit to paying the fees associated with the CMLL YouTube, and then cover that. We won't be reimbursing the fees that they will have to pay, and for anyone that's listening, that's like, oh, well, there's other ways to obtain that. Shame on you. Okay. Shame on you. We do not in any way support swindling, grifting, sailing the high seas from these wrestling companies. CMLL, let me look at what their channel's subscription is. So if you want to subscribe, let me see here. Oh my God. I know it's expensive. Yeah. If you want to join, the Fan Leyenda, and this is a really, really, really good tier. It's their top tier. You get every show, including the Friday night Arena Mexicos. It's only $35 a month. So, we're going to need someone to jump on this network, pay the $35 a month, speak Spanish fluently. It's not enough for you to just watch the show and then tell us, what happened. If you can't dive deep into the commentary, the promos, and the interviews, we don't want you on this network, but we do want you to pay for it, and we want you to be fluent in Spanish. And then that's really all we need at this point. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. No, we'll be good to go.
Yeah, we don't need anybody covering any of the, American Indies. We don't need anyone covering Brit Rez. Fuck that. We don't need any other, Purezu. No WWE coverage whatsoever. The biggest company in the world. We don't need that either. We're good.
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump into New Japan stuff. So first thing, there was a news story that came out with Drilla Maloney sustaining an injury, but continuing to compete. So on February 3rd, live event in Ikawi, Fukushima, Drilla Maloney sustained an injury to his right triceps at his personal request, and after consultation with the medical staff, Maloney will compete in all remaining matches during the Road to New Beginning tour as scheduled. Maloney will continue to be closely monitored by trainers and ring doctors. So as of now, Maloney he was on this Road to show this weekend and will be at the New Beginning in Osaka.
Yeah, there's the one hand where it's like, you want what's best for these guys. You want for them to take care of themselves. And honestly, we've seen people like Hiroshi Tanahashi, like Sonata work on, torn biceps, and it fucks up their whole entire careers. So on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, I think it would be wise if this guy, he knows his own body, he knows his own risks, but it'd be wise for him to get the care that he needs. But on the other hand, it's kind of stud that he's just like, fuck it, I'm not missing any dates.
Right. We got a big tag match at New Beginning. We're going to run it.
So it's like, all right, bro, you got no bicep, but cool. Yeah, it's a tough business, right?
Yeah.
That's what they, grizzled vet. So, I don't have much more to add to that. It's kind of crazy, but it is what it is.
So then that takes us to the Road 2 show that happened yesterday. This was in Edion Arena, Osaka #2. Had an attendance of 888. So there was a little bit of change to the card. So Yasuda requested a singles match with Hiromu. So Hiromu ended up doing double duty on the show. So the show opened up. We had Hiromu Takahashi defeating Masatora Yasuda 6 minutes and 50 seconds. And Hiromu came out to what I believe was his Young Lion music. It was a different music than his normal Time Bomb music. And he came running out like a young lion. So he was kind of treating this, almost like he was a young lion as well. But pretty quick matchup here. Wasn't really super impressed with Yasuda here. It was a lot of strike and base, a lot of chop exchange, but pretty much Hiromu just kind of ate him up for the most part and ended up submitting him with Boston Crab.
honestly, when he first came, and I hate to be this person because it's pretty rare you hear us say anything too negative about the Young Lions. I feel like we're pretty invested in their, progression and their story and everything like that. But Yasuda was a guy that when he first came in, was pretty high on him. I thought both him and Matsumoto, that's who he came in with, right?
Yeah.
I thought both of those guys, I was like, man, they're already right now further along than Shomakato and Murashima at that time. And I think that's probably correct. And he's had some misfortunes. He's had some injuries and time off and everything like that. Yasuda, that is. But for my money, he's just kind of seemed to you could say he's lacked progression and stayed stagnant, but I almost feel like he might have regressed a little bit at this point. He doesn't seem to, something has changed where he does not seem to have the same like fire and like just flair that he had when he first came in.
Yeah, something was off there. And that Young Lions Cup match he had, and he tried that horrible moonsault, and like, I don't know, there's just something that's been off of him. And in this match, like, it was fine, but I feel like he was lacking fire behind his chops and wasn't really doing a lot of like the grappling well. And then Hiromu just kind of ate him up. And so, I didn't think he really looked great in this matchup. And it was just a really quick match. He got a singles match. Hiromu kind of shook his hand and stuff afterwards. But yeah.
There was something there where Hiromu, during, I don't know if it was post-match or if it was just an interview blurb that I read, but like with Tokyo Sports, but he mentioned, being requested to have this match, and he felt that he kind of saw a little bit of himself, like that he was reminded of himself in Yasuda. And to be honest, I could kind of see that a little bit, now, granted, I wasn't thoroughly watching because that stuff wasn't as available. It's somewhat available, but I wasn't watching Hiromu a ton as a Young Lion because, again, that stuff wasn't always like making tape. This was he left for Excursion like before World, you know what I mean? So it's few and far between, but I wasn't ever necessarily super high on Hiromu as a Young Lion. When I never saw him as somebody where I was like, oh yeah, this is a guy that's going to be a big star, blah, blah, blah. I thought he was average, and I thought he didn't have a great build or great look. And he kind of had puffy hair like Yasuda and was kind of goofy. And I could kind of see the comparison points between the two. It wasn't until Hiromu went to Mexico and started working under the mask with Kamatachi that he really, and then obviously the feud with Dragon Lee, that's where, a lot of people are listening. They probably don't remember that stuff. For a long time, it was like so heralded. And now we're approaching a decade since that entire excursion took place. But that was like one of the greatest excursions that anybody this side of like Muto has had for New Japan Pro Wrestling in terms of like utilization, name recognition, acclaim, winning titles and things like that. Like Hiromu was the fucking man when he was in CMLL.
Yeah.
And him and Dragon Lee, they had a feud that, granted, a lot of people have seen their matches in New Japan, but even before they came to New Japan, they already had a feud that was akin to like Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask. It was like that level, essentially.
Yeah, super high level. And we see tons of guys going on excursions, but never really have that serious of a program and being a super top tier rivalry. And that was something where there was rave reviews all over the internet that people who are watching CMLL, you got to watch this Kamatachi guy and Dragon Lee. They're tearing it up in Mexico. And then that feud eventually spilled over into Japan, and Dragon Lee making dates there, Hiromu coming back from excursion. Super great rivalry there.
The other thing that's interesting is, Yasuda has a twin brother that was in the Noge dojo, wasn't able to cut it, and was released from the dojo, and now is working in Noah as a member of, what is their name?
Los Tranquilos de Japón.
Yeah, Los Tranquilos de Japón. So I don't know. I feel like that was a little bit of a tell as well. The fact that like Hiromu probably pretty clearly, he just came off of a GHC title run. He's been working dates in Noah. All his buddies are over there right now. And they got little homie in the other Yasuda twin. So I am wondering, like, if there's like a broader connection there, if they're going to try and poach Yasuda away from New Japan. I don't know. Maybe that's just a little bit conjecture. Maybe it is something where it's like, hey, off the clock, these guys are all fairly close. And, Yasuda, even though he's a New Japan guy moving forward, he's still kind of like an extension of LIJ-ism. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I did want to see the match, but it doesn't sound like you were too enthralled with it.
Yeah, I mean, it might be worth it just to check out for kind of history's sake, and in case Yasuda comes back and he's like super raw, like, remember this last match he had with Hiromu? Besides that, yeah, it was just kind of there.
Interesting.
Then following that, we had Katsuya Murashima in Tiger Mask defeating Shomakato and Tomioka Hanma. Tiger Mask getting the win there for Tiger Suplex over Kato. Then after that, we had Hartley Jackson, Kosei Fujita, Roy Oiwa, and Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Bishamon, Bolton Oleg, and Ryusuke Taguchi. So last preview there of the Never Six-Man title match, Hartley Jackson hitting his Jagged Edge to get the win there. Then we had Dick Togo, Doki, Ren Narita, and Yujiro Takahashi defeating Aaron Wolf, Master Wato, Toriano, and Yo. So we had a lot of House of Torture antics here. Ref distraction. They're all using their weapons. And in the end, Ren Narita did the Hell's Guillotine knee to Yo to get the win for the team. Then after that, we had Desperado, Shota Umino, and Yuya Uemura taking on Knockout Brothers and Daiki Nagai. So last preview here for the upcoming tag team title match. So good action there. And Umino and Uemura get some momentum here going into the tag match. It was Despy hitting the Pinche Loco on Daiki Nagai to get the win. Then we had Drilla Maloney, Hiromu, Robbie X, and Taiji Ishimori defeating Great Okan, Hanare, Jacob, Austin Young, and Zane J. And I thought it was very interesting. They had Robbie X hit the X Express on Zane J to pick up the win. And it seems like they haven't been pushing Zane J as a heavyweight and saying he's, quote unquote, graduated, but then they have a junior and Robbie X pinning him.
It's a fake graduation, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I'm not joking. Like, I know it's the way I said that is funny, but they do this from time to time where they say a guy is graduated, and I guess they kind of technically are because they're out of the black trunks and they have an identity, but they're not really fully graduated to the status of like a guy on the roster.
Is it kind of like a Hanare?
That was going to be my exact, example. Tell me a little bit about what you remember about that period.
Yeah, so I feel like he was kind of a young lion, and then one day just kind of showed up wearing more of the, New Zealand type gear, and I think he had maybe
he looked like Tatanka.
Yeah, he might have had face paint, but yeah, he had like Tatanka like looking gear, and then he was just kind of wrestling Ishii all the time and losing.
Right. So like he was a guy that like they quote unquote graduated after he returned from the Achilles, but like he wasn't a made dude, and it was a really long time before he was even winning matches. And then really, truly, like Hanare didn't like fully, truly graduate until they unveiled him as X for United Empire as Aaron Hanare, back in the G1. I don't remember when that was, like 2019, 2020, something like that.
Yeah, I think it had to be 2020 because that's when United Empire came during the pandemic.
Okay. And maybe even it might have even been after that.
Yeah, it might have been 21, yeah.
But, an example is like Hiroshi Tanahashi. If you've listened to the series that I'm, still currently in the midst of, the Tanahashi Ace of the Universe, like he was under the black trunks in 99 and 2000. He returned in 2001 after an injury, and he had the red trunks on, and he declared that he was graduated. but he's still a young lion, basically. Like, that's the same year where he defeats Scott Hall in the very infamous match where Scott Hall declared that he wanted to lose to Tanahashi. And it's essentially a squash job, like a 3-minute squash job where literally Tanahashi gets no offense. Scott Hall is beating the fuck out of him. And then Scott Hall decides to cut a promo mid-match on Keiji Muto. And lo and behold, Tanahashi just rolls him up real quick with a schoolboy and gets the one, like the unbelievable 1-2-3, and just rolls out of there. It's very clear, like, this is not a guy who's even worthy of throwing a forearm to hit Scott Hall at that point. You know what I mean? Like, he is a pure young lion. He just has red trunks on. And like, there have been lots of guys who, Togi Makabe, when he graduated as Shinya Makabe, he went through a very similar period of time. The same thing with Toriano, also went through something similar to this. Like, guys will either usually it's a situation where they don't go on an excursion. They stick around and they just kind of graduate them, but they're not fully seasoned, you know?
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
I feel like even with the young lion guys, or I'm sorry, with the TMDK guys like Fujita and Oiwa, they were in such a precarious position for that period of time where it's like they were kind of traveling out, but they were still kind of here in the roster for a while. Well, more so like Fujita, where it's like Fujita was graduated, but he was still kind of the young boy for a while.
Yeah. That's exactly what's happening with Zayn J. So yeah, he ate the pinfall here to Robbie X, and then post-match, Empire attacked, beat the guys down, and got their heat back. Then the main event, we had Callum Newman, Francesco Akira, and Jake Lee defeating the Unbound Company team of David Finlay, Gato, and Yota Tsuji by a ref's decision. Jake Lee using his guillotine maneuver on Gato to get the win. And so they kind of continued the intensity here with Newman and Finlay. They started jumping from the bell, fought all throughout the arena, and post-match they fought all the way to the back. And then they had this really weird kind of post-match, Akira first cuts his promo, and then it goes to Jake Lee, and he invites Tsuji into the ring, and they're having this whole back and forth promo, which also at the time I did not understand, but there has been some translations out for it. But it was like a friendly...
You didn't pick up enough Japanese in Japan to translate this shit? Come on, bro.
Nobody said sumimasen. Nobody said arigatou gozaimasu. But so essentially, Lee says all the preview matches are done, and that just leaves our title match. But I wanted to ask you really wanted to break my knees today, didn't you? Tsuji says, you think so? If I were trying to, you wouldn't be able to walk right now. Lee says, point taken. I don't know if you guys saw it, but we talked backstage the other day. You invited me to Unbound Company because you knew Hiromu was leaving, right? You had that in mind when you made the proposition, didn't you, champion? Tsuji says, sorry, Jake, that's not how I think of you. I can't forgive you for what you did to me in the Tokyo Dome, but I'll get you back on February 11th. If you can put that behind you, I think you're a hell of a wrestler. Are you really happy with Empire? Jake, you don't cover a lie with a second one. Tell me the truth. What are you hiding? Where's the lie? I still don't know. What are you hiding under that mask? Lee says, oh, that would be so dull to say. Let's save something for February 11th, champion. Thank you for today. So they just kind of had like this friendly back and forth conversation after like the heated, Jake Lee attacks him at Wrestle Kingdom. He's been attacking, he took Shingo out. He's been, choked out Tsuji to get the title match. And like now all of a sudden they're having this whole like back and forth conversation.
I can't speak too authoritatively about it because I didn't see it. You know what I mean? I'm kind of just but the vibe sounds very different from what we saw in the lead up to, the build to this match, correct?
Yeah, because I mean the vibe was Jake Lee's back. He's pissed off that he was injured. He switches factions. Yeah, he jumps Tsuji at Wrestle Kingdom, and then he's goading him for a title match. He injures Shingo, and then chokes out Tsuji and get his title match. Like now he's all kind of just like laid back and chilled now that he got the match.
Yeah, and remember I started alluding to that last week where I was like, it is weird that he's not keeping the pressure on this guy now that he's gotten the title. Now, maybe perhaps there could be some element of, oh, they're playing mind games with one another. What it sounded to me, again, without having seen it, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, kind of sounded similar to the way that, like, remember when Jay White and Naito used to have these like very chummy, kind of like frenemy sort of feuds, and they would like, be, is that kind of what we're looking at here from this particular segment?
Yeah, I think so. Because, Jake Lee invites him in the ring. Tsuji's smiling, and they're literally sitting right next to each other, just having this like back and forth conversation. And it's also very clearly like, Tsuji wants to keep the belt and beat this guy. But he's also alluding to him, not being happy in that Empire, maybe him joining Unbound Company. And so, there's just this weird kind of, frenemy back and forth. So it's really strange.
I mean, I've seen plenty of times where Tanahashi in his career, when he was the ace, would have heated feuds with guys and then close it out with a promo between the guys. And there was maybe I don't want to say that there wasn't tension, but it was clearly like, these guys are not going to tear each other's heads off right now. It's going to be like a closing promo to like lead up to things. But typically it didn't tend to veer into like friendliness or playfulness. They still kind of kept the animosity and the competitive nature of the rivalry, in the forefront. So I don't know, man, that sounds to me like either, we've heard about guys having so much leeway and there sometimes being a lack of creative direction, but at the same time, they do have a booking committee. They do have direction of some sort. So that to me sounds like either two guys that were lacking direction or don't know what the fuck they themselves want to do. And it is weird when they were telling such a definitive hate-filled story that was clearly successful. I mean, they've sold out the building with no standing room. Like it's completely sold out. So maybe that's another part of it. They're like, we got your ticket. We
got your money, kid.
Yeah. But I don't know. That doesn't sound compelling to me. And it's not inspiring me to have confidence about a match that's already got a lot of, caution as to how it's going to deliver later this week.
Yeah. So we have a question here from Rambone. So we'll kind of kick off into our preview. It says, are you expecting a pretty chalk, the guys we think are leaving put over the ones who are staying, series of outcomes, or any surprising finishes for New Beginning? And we can go through the show and kind of give our predictions for each of the matches here.
Well, I will say this before we jump into that. This isn't a spoiler, but like, remember when last year Jeff Cobb was on his way out? It was the New Japan Cup. Everyone was convinced, including myself, that he's getting ready to job out to Naito and leave the company. And then he beats Naito and then goes on a weird rant about, oh, I thought the dirt sheets knew everything, but then he did still leave the company. It's like the dirt sheets did know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
I am one, but that is kind of like a swerve that they did there. So we still don't know the full status of some of these guys that are on the card as to whether they're staying, whether they are in fact leaving, or more importantly, if they are leaving, when they may potentially be leaving. So I don't think that just because some of these guys might be on their way out, that this show in particular is, the situation where it's like they have to go out on their back.
Yeah. So the New Beginning in Osaka will be at Edion Arena, Osaka, this coming Wednesday, February 11th. 1 a.m. Eastern start time. So we got a pre.
And it's not Gymnasium 2. It's Gymnasium 1, the big one.
Yes, the big one. Yeah. So pre-show tag match starting the show. We got Togi Makabe and Toru Yano taking on Katsuya Murashima and Shomakato. So this will be Murashima's send-off match, and he will be going quote unquote overseas for excursion. They didn't really specify where overseas, but I'm assuming that's going to be Europe. And then this will be coming the end of Kato's run. So Kato's send-off will be happening during Fantastica Mania, and he will be going back with the CMLL crew to Mexico for his excursion.
Yeah, it sounds like that Dragon Gate comment that we had in our Discord was off the mark.
Yeah.
But fake news. But with that being said, hopefully they have a better go of it. The last time I remember them taking a young lion with them after Fantascomania was Wato. And you can say what you want about Wato at this point in time, but like there's no denying that his excursion, or I guess the other guy that went was Tsuji, but I don't think Tsuji, he went in the middle of the year. He didn't like leave at Fantascomania.
Yeah.
But there's no denying that like Wato-san's his excursion was pretty lackluster and wasn't quite what you would have hoped it was
no
be.
Kamatachi.
Yeah. So hopefully that's not the same thing for Shomakato. But Murashima going up against the most violent players. I'm sure they're going to showcase a lot of his, give him a lot of shine and whatever. But he's probably one of two things is happening. He's either eating a King Kong knee drop, or, Toru Yano is going to hit him low and roll him up for the 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
But I would love it if he got on one of those guys. And I would love it in particular if it was Togi Makabe. If he got that guy in the fucking Boston Crab and he jumps on his back.
Jumping.
And here's one of the reasons that I say that. I know I'm referencing my own my own side podcast, but the 19 for Tanahashi Ace of the Universe, one of the review matches that we talked about was from 2000, and it was during the G1 finals, and it's a tag match where it's Togi Makabe and who's the junior that you like from that era? I always forget his name. Kanemoto.
Yes, Kanemoto, yeah.
Yeah, so Tim and Kanemoto against Tanahashi and fucking Otani. Really, really cool match. And you kind of assume that it's young lions with seniors, so you kind of know what's going to happen there. But no, Togi Makabe goes over clean, like definitively over Otani, not over Tanahashi. He goes over Otani. And obviously, like, and Otani's not a junior at this point. He's working heavyweight, and he's a long-time established guy. So he's not at the top of the pillars, let's say, but he is a known commodity. He's a big star. And on his way to his graduation, they had Togi Makabe beat that man clean. I would love for him to turn around all these years later, 26 years later, and return the favor. He probably won't, but I would love to see that man get stretched and tapped out.
Yeah, that would be interesting, unique finish. But yeah, I doubt that. I think one of these guys are going to eat a King Kong knee drop, and Makabe is going to get the win. But at this point, like, Makabe doesn't really need the win. Like, this is a guy that's not really featured heavily at all. He's mainly prelim tag match, if that. So I don't think a loss would hurt him if he decided to do one.
Doesn't have to be Makabe. Could always be Toru Yano. Doesn't really matter to me. But, Yano is still a guy that they kind of protect and they use more regularly. Obviously, Makabe is not nearly in the rotation these days as he used to be. Plus, arguably, from a notoriety standpoint, he's a much bigger name and bigger star in Japan than, Toru Yano. So if you wanted to give this kid a little bit of a rub before he leaves and create a moment, this is where you would do it. Of the two guys, Makabe is the guy he should beat.
Yeah.
But he won't. But it would be cool if he did, because then we'd have something really nice to put down in our Fighting Spirit Awards.
Yeah, that would be a good moment there. And then the main show is going to open up. We got United Empire, Francesco Akira, and Jacob Austin Young taking on Hiromu Takahashi and Taiji Ishimori from the Unbound Company. Yeah,
so this is an interesting opening tag match, a continuation of the feud that we've seen playing out, but it also feels like they're probably getting ready to potentially do some form of shifting away from this, just because we're on the precipice of these monumental changes within United Empire, I'm not sure how much longer they as United Front are going to be able to like take the fight to for Unbound Company. I don't know if they're going to be able to take the fight to United Empire continuing on, you know?
Yeah. And so this is also, Hiromu's last match in the company. So he's going to be out of things. So, there does seem to be a very strong push for United Empire, for Francesco Akira making a big deal of pinning Hiromu, pinning Taiji Ishimori. And the promo he cut on Sunday, he said that Hiromu that this night is not going to be Hiromu's last night in New Japan. It's going to be his last night, period, in his career, that he's going to retire Hiromu from pro wrestling. So clearly gunning to solidify himself being the better junior over Hiromu. I could see Akira pinning him again to get the win here, but it feels like Yui is set to get the win here.
Remember when Stalker Chikawa had his retirement match against Tanahashi over a year ago and was like, "Oh, you're retiring next year? No, you're not. I'm going to retire you tonight."
Yeah.
So, I love that. I think the story here is the story of Francesco Akira, desiring to beat these guys, but he has, correct me if I'm wrong, he has victories in matches against Hiromu and Taiji Ishimori, both at this point, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, I guess you could have him win again and then just really solidify even further where he's at. But because he has those two big wins, I don't know that it's 100% necessary that he gets the win. I would prefer it, but sometimes they're sentimental in this company. They might have Taiji Ishimori get the win to kind of continue the feud and also allow Hiromu to have like the send-off moment or whatever.
Yeah, also I think that the big kind of question mark is Jacob Austin Young. Like, what are we doing with him? Like, is he going to continue to be kind of the pin eater of the group, or are they trying to elevate him also? We have been seeing him pick up some more wins in the preview tags and have been a little bit more aggressive. And if the plan is, all right, we're going to push him more, and then we're going to do Akira and Jacob Austin Young versus Ichiban Sweet Boys, then maybe you want to go the route of Jacob Austin Young getting the pin and kind of showing, like, all right, both guys are on even footing here, and they're a deadly team that could challenge and win the junior tag titles. But if you're going more the route of Akira is going to challenge the winner of Wato and Doki, then maybe you have Akira get the win there. I would not be a fan of Hiromu or Ishimori picking up the win here, because I don't really think, unless you're going to go, Ishimori is going to, him and Robbie X are going to challenge Sweet Boys. Maybe you have Ishimori, tap out Jacob Austin Young, but I think the right move would be to have Yui win here.
I could see a scenario, just kind of spitballing some ideas here. United Empire goes over in either of those two scenarios that you've laid out, and then they're getting a little rough with Hiromu and Ishimori post match, and then I don't know, someone like Robbie X or something like that comes out, helps kind of even the odds. And then that kind of allows Hiromu to still sort of stand tall. The other guys can bow out, and then he can have his moment in the ring to say goodbye to the fans, bow, and whatever fucking weird, crazy he's probably going to cry, but he might even do some weird shit running around the ring or whatever.
Screaming,
so, it's hard to say with him what that's going to look like. I like that idea about Jacob Austin Young potentially picking up a victory here, especially like if you're of the old school mindset that like, hey, these guys, they need to do business on the way out and, lay down on the mat. It's hard to argue that there wouldn't be a greater way for him to elevate a young guy than, potentially losing to Jacob Austin Young here.
Yeah, and we have a question here from Red Bear Hugh saying, does Jacob Austin Young score the pin in the opener? Akira's already beaten both guys. It would give JAY credibility going into Super Junior season.
I like that. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I like it. And I'm going to make it the prediction.
Yeah, and that's been part of his beef too, saying the company snubbed him last year, him doing all the tours, he didn't get to do Super Juniors, and trying to really drive home that point, he should be in the tournament. So again, if you're going with this team challenging and you want to push JAY up the card, then yeah, I think it would be good for him to get the win over either of these guys.
Now, here's another interesting thing is like there are quite a few United Empire Unbound Company matches. We're about to talk about another one. You kind of have to wonder like about keeping score with these is, which side is going to come out a little bit more dominant. And if you're going to need to even things out a little bit as we go along.
Yeah, I think it's really going to end up depending on what the planned outcome is for the world title match. Because I feel like maybe if Jake Lee's winning, maybe you have more Unbound Company wins throughout the night. And then if Tsuji's winning, maybe you have more United Empire wins throughout the night. And Tsuji kind of gets the big last win.
And I'm more in the middle. I think it's going to be a situation where you kind of are splitting wins. And then it comes down to the main event.
So kind of what we saw with the TMDK Chaos or Hantai match recently, where you had each faction kind of picking up a win. Last one was a tiebreaker kind of situation.
Oh yeah. The three singles matches. Yeah. Which, by the way, like Dave Meltzer, bro, come on, get the fuck out of here. I know it's his ratings or whatever, but you're gonna rate Hartley Jackson versus Oleg Boltin as the lowest of those three. Get the fuck out of here, bro.
Bro, that bump alone on the chair like was 4-star territory.
Bro, you know how hard those chairs are, dude? My God.
So the next matchup, like you mentioned, another UE versus Unbound Company match. We got the War Dragons. So we got Drilla Maloney and a returning Shingo Takagi taking on Great Okan and Hanare. And you got to think this is probably a de facto number one contenders match for the tag team titles. Former champions in Great Okan and Hanare. And then Drilla Maloney and Shingo Takagi being a really great team in World Tag League last year. One of the standout teams and one of the favorites amongst fans.
Yeah, it's a little tough because we just predicted United Empire winning the opening match. So, for my theory that they're going to start splitting some wins and losses here, that would probably speak to the idea that War Dragons are picking up the win. But I kind of feel like Okan and Hanare, it's tough because it's like Shingo is in a spot where it's like he's still an excellent talent, but he's sort of aimless. And Drilla is this kind of rising dynamo, and the two of them together make a really great tag team. So it's like Shingo's kind of benefiting from it. Drilla is getting something meaningful to do as he's ascending while they're not ready to put him in like meaningful singles situations. But Drilla does have the bicep issue. So there's that to think about. And then United Empire, because they're very clearly getting positioned as the next big heel faction, you almost do kind of have to wonder like, okay, Great Okan and Hanare, they might need the victory and the push more than Drilla and Shingo do at this current time, especially if, and I'm throwing ideas out there as we talk about it tonight. If we're thinking hypothetically that Unbound Company is going to go through some rocky times, it might make sense that they don't all jive on this evening and that United Empire sort of get the upper hand. I think I've sold myself. I think, and here's the last point I'll make. I'm already in spoiler alert. I've said this quite a bit leading up to this show. I feel strongly that KOB is dropping the titles to Uemura and Umino. And since that is the case, I think either of these two teams could win, but I think United Empire having a heel foil for those uber baby faces just makes more sense. And that's that was my initial gut, knee-jerk reaction, what I thought about this match.
Yeah, and I feel like, Hanare is in the best shape of his life right now, just recently came back from injury, and he's a part of this group that's kind of soaring right now. And so, yeah, I could definitely see them getting the win. And there's a lot of different factors around the War Dragons team. Like you mentioned, Drilla has a triceps injury. Shingo is coming back from the kayfabe, rib injury that he got from Jake Lee. And there's also rumors that Drilla could be on the way out of the promotion. And so there's a lot of kind of factors swirling around War Dragons that could have them losing. And then, yeah, United Empire, they're in the middle of a big push right now. They're on fire. Last time these guys were tag champions, they had to vacate the belts because Hanara had got injured. So it could be, the case of, we never lost the belts. We need to get a title match. And so a big win here can get them back in the title picture. And like you mentioned, it does seem like Rough Storm are going to beat KOB. So you want to have some heel challengers set up. The only thing is, it's like, I don't know, I feel like with that much momentum, you might want Okan Hanare to win the title. So do you want them beating Rough Storm right away, or are they just going to eat a loss challenging those guys?
Honestly, I kind of think when I've made my predictions about what's going on with the tag situation, and if you go back and you listen, we're talking since literally around the time of the G1. Or the G1 finals. When KOB first came back, I was like, they're going to belt them up immediately. They're going to have several title defenses, and then they're going to take the titles off of them in February so that they can both have singles directions going into New Japan Cup. And from there, what happens, I don't know. But that's really, to me, the story of the tag team division. Everybody is living in KOB's world, and it really just comes down to what's going on with them. Everybody else is just in their orbit. So for me, it's like, do I think Umino and Uemura need to have a super meaningful long run? Not necessarily. That's not to say that they couldn't retain in the future, but we've seen them hot potato these titles quite a bit until KOB showed up and brought some stability. And I sort of get the feeling that we're not in store for any other team to have long established, meaningful reigns outside of KOB. I feel like everybody else is going to kind of be, basically vying for that position at the top until KOB are ready to come back and in this scenario I'm laying out, reclaim their throne, which I think that probably happened by Dominion.
Yeah. So final prediction, going with Okan Hanare.
I'm going with Okan and Hanare. So with that being said, I know in theory I've said we're gonna be splitting losses. That might still hold to be true between these two factions, but as of now, in my book, United Empire, they're up 2-0 on the evening.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Okan and Hanare. I feel like Shingo, coming back from the quote-unquote injured ribs, that's going to be a big target. Drilla's torn triceps going to be a big target. So I just feel like there's going to be too much for Okan and Hanare to go after, and they're coming in weekend. And so, yeah, I think there's going to be blood in the water. Okan and Hanare are going to get the win.
I'm also not entirely sold on Drilla Maloney exiting the company. I'm not saying that the option isn't potentially there, and the opportunity and everything like that, but I don't know. My gut is just telling me he might want to stick around at least one more year and kind of kick the tires on what creative can do with him. Of course, if he's getting some sort of astronomical figure in the States, then that might be a different story, but I'm not fully convinced personally. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'm not convinced he's leaving. I just don't get that vibe.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like he's staying around, and he kind of joked around about it a little bit when he was on commentary during one of the Corkins. Like, you don't know what I'm doing kind of a thing. So we'll see what happens. It does seem like the War Dogs are trying to get a push in AEW. They got Clark Connors and Gabe Kidd linked up right now on television. So there's rumors that, Finlay might be getting an offer. So there could be a play to try and get all these War Dog guys over to AEW and have them be a faction over there.
And that is so precarious because we've seen similar situations where it's worked out fairly well for some guys, but in almost every situation where they've brought over a collective group, it's only served a few interested parties and left a lot of guys kind of like by the wayside. And I could give you some examples. I feel like the Hurt Syndicate is an example of being a vehicle for like one guy and the other guys are kind of just ancillary. You think about when who are the guys from NXT that all jumped together?
Undisputed Era.
Yeah, Undisputed Era. Like, Bobby Fish. Who the fuck knows what's going on with that guy? Kyle O'Reilly has had successes, but he's also kind of in the wind. And and then Adam Cole's the only guy that was really poised to come out of there as like a serious thing. Then you look at like the Bang Bang Club. It's not quite the same thing, but it was supposed to be Bullet Club Gold, and some of the obviously they've been plagued with injuries, but that also kind of just became a lot of times. I don't think Tony is great at dealing with factions unless it's like the one faction that he seems to be able to. Don Callis, like anything Don Callis touches.
Yeah.
But I think that's because Don has his own creative voice behind it. And at this point, it's not even really a faction. It's an army of gentlemen that you don't have to even focus on them as a group. But like very rarely do I think Tony Khan is doing a fantastic job dealing with factions. And honestly, I mean, how many bookers in the States have ever been very good at booking around factions anyways, anywhere?
Yeah. And with Tony, there was a little bit of success with the Inner Circle versus Elite feud in the early days. But like, since then, any faction that's really popped up, it's really kind of been to serve one guy. Doesn't really get a whole bunch of other people over, or you don't really see the factions being like there's trios titles, there's tag title stuff that you could be doing, and he doesn't really utilize factions in that way.
You could probably make and of course we're not an AEW podcast, but you could probably make an argument for like BCC and the Death Riders, but there's so many like gaps in there where there's so many things where you could really point and be like, okay, this was a failing, this was a failing, this was a failing, but it's like, but they also got top stars in there that are going to get pushed no matter what, and they kind of keep the thing afloat. It almost feels like here's a big difference. It's like Jericho has surrounded himself so many times with guys, and I'm not saying he doesn't help them, but it's always a vehicle to keep Jericho relevant.
Yeah.
And nobody else gets over. I get the feeling that like BCC is, or like Death Riders is like Mox being like, you're not going to cut these guys. You're not going to underpush them. I'm going to keep these guys afloat for however fucking long. Like, it's not just strictly a vehicle to make him the top guy, even though that's part of it. Like, I get the feeling that he's probably advocating for Mina Shafir. He's probably advocating for
Claudio and Pac and Yuta
and
Garcia
and Garcia and all those. I feel like he is doing his damnedest to make sure that those guys get spots based on being in that group, which is a little different. And you could point at so many groups where they've failed at being able to utilize guys in, like they can't follow. I mean, for example, like in New Japan, almost every faction has a junior tag team, a junior ace, a pin eater, a second in command. There's a hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
They struggle to really maintain that hierarchy and book them accordingly in AEW.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, Vince wasn't good at it either. Like, I don't think very many Western bookers that have been on top have been good at this.
Yeah. So we got Okan Hanare winning here. So following match.
And the reason, I'm sorry, that just went off into a whole tangent about me criticizing the booking over there. If I am and I'm just talking about pure kayfabe here. I'm not talking about anything else because I don't know these guys' lives. But if you're Drilla Maloney and you're thinking about going over there and they already got Clark and they already got Gabe, and you kind of know Tony's got a favorite in Gabe anyways. And then they're going to also bring over Finley, who's an established guy. It's just a unilateral. I mean, you're going to get paid more, but it's kind of a unilateral move. You're kind of having to bank on the idea that getting on national television, probably getting in a tag team role and working your ass off will eventually allow you to move up, but you're still kind of structured beneath at least two main guys. Whereas if he stays and those guys leave, it opens up a lot of, I mean, there's only so many Westerners in this company, and anytime big name Westerners leave, and you have probably two of the biggest in Dave Finley and Gabe, what does that do? That's a power vacuum. Drilla Maloney is uniquely positioned to kind of take, basically benefit from that.
Yeah, I mean, if he jumps to AEW, he's probably going to end up teaming with Clark again, which is almost kind of a little bit of a backwards step for him when he's kind of he had a little bit of singles push this year, and he's kind of in this big heavyweight tag team. So yeah, it does kind of feel like it might even be a little bit going backwards going there. But of course, it's a lot of speculation. We don't know what exactly is going to happen there, but
he also is like very clearly got WWE written all over him in terms of like his look. Mm-hmm. He's very, very marketable in terms of the look and the body and everything like that. So, and how they like to sign UK talent.
Yeah, he did post recently a picture of him back in the NXT UK days. So a little teaser there as well. And also, he has not really been rocking with the Unbound Company. He has not wore the Unbound Company merch, and they try to do their new little hand signal thing in the ring. He doesn't take part in that. So he's kind of been distancing himself from some of the other Unbound Company guys. So that leads us into the next matchup here for the Never Openweight 6-man tag team title match. We got Bishamon, Hiroki Goto, and Yoshihashi teaming up with Boltin Oleg, taking on the TMDK team of Hartley Jackson, Roy Oiwa, and Zack Sabre Jr. So the big rematch here for Never 6-man titles. I've been seeing a lot of build, a lot of singles matches, a lot of multi-man matches, all coming to this Never 6-man title match.
One other thing I wanted to mention, and I forgot, and I'd be remiss, of all the potential implication, because we do believe that tag match we just discussed is a de facto number one contender spot. Ideally, from just a sicko work rate standpoint, the best outcome is the one that we didn't predict, but the best outcome is KOB versus War Dragon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that would happen, but, I would be perfectly fine being wrong with my predictions in order to get that match on the docket. So this match in particular is a rematch of something we saw on this tour earlier, this last month, where Bishamon and Oleg Boltin were able to unseat TMDK for the Never Openweight 6-man tag team titles. Was this same tag team, the same TMDK trio?
Yeah. So this was the final teams and the gauntlet at Wrestle Kingdom, where we had TMDK win the belts there, then rematch in Korakuen last month with the Hantai team. I keep wanting to say Chaos. The Hantai team getting the win, and now we got TMDK challenging once again.
With that being said, I'm trying to recall, how good was the tag match?
Oh, the Korakuen match rocked, yeah.
Yeah, it was really good, but I feel like it's kind of got lost in the shuffle of all the other 2-on-2 tag match bangers in the past couple of months.
Yeah, it was on the same card as the Rough Storm versus Taichi Ishii match.
That's right. Okay. So, I mean, they've got the capacity in them to really have another great match here. There's some awesome talent involved. I'm fine with whoever wins here. My bigger question is going to be, you can't just have these two trios continuously fight one another and trade wins back and forth. So I feel like whoever wins as far as for right now, this needs to be the end of this series, win, lose, or draw. But the big question to me is going to be who's next in line to challenge for these belts, and why is it House of Torture again?
Honestly,
it always is.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of house representation on this card, so you could easily have three of those guys jump these guys after the match to set up the next challengers, because it seems like a lot of the other factions are kind of tied up for the evening. Like, I can't see any other United Empire guys like jumping them afterwards. I don't see any of the Unbound Company guys getting involved. Like, they're all kind of tied up.
There is a trio out there.
Who?
Team 150.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility. I'm not banking on that, but that is a possibility. If it does feel a little bit like House of Torture, especially with Evil exiting from the company, that they're a little bit, I don't want to say in limbo, but they don't have a lot going on this card. They always tend to be involved in the never 6-man division. So they're probably, if it's not Team 150, it's probably them next. But how are you feeling? Do you think Goto, Yoshihashi, and Oleg Boltin need to stay, tied together with these titles? Because I know a lot of people are calling for the renaissance of the never 6-man tag team division under their, with them having a long, fruitful title reign. Or do we think we need to get the title back on Hartley Jackson so he can fulfill his dream and shed enough pounds to get it around his slender waist?
I don't know. I kind of have mixed feelings here just because of certain guys on both sides. So looking at the championship team, Boltin Oleg, he's a guy obviously this is a fun trio with him and Bishamon, but I feel like we need to put the pedal to the metal with Boltin and give him more of a singles push. And also we got New Japan Cup coming up. And so I don't feel like he's a guy that really needs to be tethered to this never 6-man division. I mean, he's kind of been there, done that, teaming up with Tanahashi and Yano a lot last year. He's kind of already been in this whole never realm. I think it's time to kind of get him out of the 6-man division and continue to push him as a singles. But then you can say the same thing on the other side with Roy Oiwa. Oiwa's a guy that really should be, again, pedal to the metal, pushing him, getting him in some big matches. And they've kind of had this whole rivalry here with him and Goto brewing from this title match program. And I really feel like the way that things have ended so far, that Oiwa should be the one to pin Goto to get the win here and get that revenge. But then it's all right, then he's stuck with the never 6-man titles and has to do that for a while until they eventually drop that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And then the other thing too is we're doing our damnedest to really provide you, the listening audience, with a insightful and meaningful discussion and all that. But at the end of the day, it is still just the never 6-man titles. So I don't know how, but I think the implications that you've brought up about hey, who's involved here and how are they going to be used moving forward in terms of being in this group. So I think that's apt. Last week I was pretty harsh about Oiwa losing to Goto in that three match series. I did a little bit of research and I posted this in the Discord. And so I just wanted to kind of read this back. So piggybacking off the Oiwa loss discussion from last week's episode, he's actually only been back with the company for a shorter amount of time than I had speculated last week. It's actually only been 14 months. So he came in very, very late in 2024, just before World Tag League. Mm-hmm. And in that time, he's had 18 singles matches. His full record is 7 wins and 11 losses. But of those 7 wins, and this is speaking to him getting meaningful wins versus him taking meaningful losses, 5 of those guys, and I don't have the full list in front of me, but 5 of those guys are the types of guys that you would anticipate someone like him beating.
Like a Yoshihashi.
Exactly. The only 2 big wins that he's had were over David Finlay and Hiroshi Tanahashi. Both of them were in the G1, and both were kind of positioned as anything can happen in the G1. It's a shocker sort of situation. But conversely, since he's returned from excursion, he's lost to Zack Sabre Jr., Konosuke Takeshita, Sonata, Hiroki Goto, Evil, Yota Tsuji, Oleg Boltin, Yuya Uemura, Gabe Kidd, and Shingo Takagi. That's a pretty long laundry list of singles matches of guys that are in the upper or top of the card, and he's lost to all of them. So,
yeah.
I don't want, again, I'm not trying to say the one argument someone could say is hey, he's only been back for 1 year. And I get that. To me, it feels like he's been back longer, but it is very telling to me that so far he's lost about 80% of the matches that he's had in the company with pushed talents.
Yeah. And I think it feels a lot longer too, because with the lack of star power. So you don't have a lot of guys that are clogging up the top of the card. So it seems like it would be easier to elevate him and for him to get some bigger wins. But, New Japan is very slow to elevate guys, especially when they come back. We always talk about this and criticize it, like a lot of these guys come back and they're essentially treated as pseudo young lions. Yeah, they have a gimmick and everything, but they still lose a lot of their big matches before they finally get that push. And so, yeah, he's kind of fallen in that pattern in the last 14 months. And I don't feel like you have to wait, a year or two before you actually start getting a guy big wins. I think you can capitalize, especially since Oiwa was in a world title program in Noah. And I get it, that's a competition, but that's still, one of the most prestigious titles in the country. He's facing Kiyomiya, one of the best wrestlers in the country. Like, they could have used that and catapulted him. Like, yeah, this guy was, challenging for the GAC. Now he's, up here challenging our top guys and beating them. Like, I feel like they could have used that as momentum to help elevate him up the card in New Japan.
Yeah, I agree. With that being said, of the guys that need to be, and then here's let me table that for a second. We're only thinking about the young guys, but we also sort of have to kind of consider Goto and Zack Sabre Jr. Not to be dismissive of Yoshihashi and Hartley Jackson, but tag team to lower tier titles as of now kind of is the realm that they're in, right? Mm-hmm. But we've already established that Zack and Goto are two of the top established, former champions in this company. They're going to need some challengers here. If not the next challenger a little bit later on in the year, those are two guys that are really great candidates. Now, that's not to say that they couldn't still, the never titles, yes, it can be a deterrent from guys being, pushed. But at the same time, we've seen guys carry singles titles and still be in trios. We've seen guys, be in singles programs, and it's not like they have to always be exclusively in the trio. So it's not as bad as if you're carrying one of the real tag titles. You have a little bit more leeway.
Yeah.
But I am still kind of considering, like, okay, whichever team loses, that kind of more so frees up the leader of that group to be in play and make a run for the heavyweight title, especially since New Japan Cup is right around the corner, and you sort of have to think that Zack and Goto, even if they're not favorites to win, they're probably going to go pretty deep, and or either that or be like one of those guys that gets shocked in the first round where you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But they're going to have an important role.
Definitely.
And then speaking of the other guys, it's like, of the two, I know I was advocating that Oiwa needs to be picking up wins, and I do still feel that way. The more established guy, the one who has been here for a little bit, at least on the main roster, a little bit longer, and the clock is ticking. He's older too, is Oleg Boltin at the same time.
Yeah. So yeah, very hard here. And again, yeah, it's just another 6-man titles, but I do feel like this, does have implications for all these guys' future, especially going into New Japan Cup. But I think I'm going to go with the TMDK team here. I really like the visual of Oiwa pinning Goto, kind of a similar scenario. They're the last two in the match, and it's down to them. And, Goto's confident because he's beat him twice, and then Oiwa pulls it out and pins him.
I am going to say classic Gato booking. I agree with you, and I think it should play out that way, but I just feel like they probably see it as though we already gave the gold watch to Hartley for the time being. Let's keep these guys strong, going into this, second quarter of the year. And if Oiwa doesn't pin Goto here, then he still has something to chase, either in the New Japan Cup or in G1. The G1, which is a little bit more classic Gato.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I'm going to say we're not going to see a title change here. We're going to stick with Bishamon and Oleg Boltin, and all these fans that are so invested in that group and their success and the visual of them are going to be happy.
Yeah. Then next match up here, we got a special singles match with the Real Latino Man, Andrade El Idolo, taking on War Ready Gabe Kidd. And they didn't officially say this, but based off the angle from New Year's Dash, it seems like the winner will get a global title match against Yota Tsuji at some point in the future.
Yeah. It is interesting because we haven't really had either of these guys on the road twos, correct?
Right. Yeah, Andrade's been in AEW, and so has Gabe.
Yeah, so it's like technically this is a de facto AEW match. I mean, Gabe is still, for the time being, contracted to New Japan. I don't know what the full official status is, if he is on his way out or if he's going into a dual contract situation or what have you. But these guys are spending most of their time over there. And at the same time, we had a pretty great angle on January 5th to really establish and set up this match. The match itself, the two talents involved, it should be fantastic. But at the same time, as a New Japan fan, I'm not really that invested, or at least not nearly as much as I was, say, on January 5th, because they haven't given me any other reason beyond, it's the 9th. So we're talking about like 34, 35 days ago, that one angle.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of these purists that's like, oh, all these guys have to be on every single road to. That's not necessarily the case, but there's been no promotion. You know what I mean?
Do a promo package, or hey, they're both in AEW, have them pull a camera. I'm not saying do it on TV, but like have them film a backstage thing that they can send to New Japan where, all right, we have a face-to-face, promo here with Andrade and Gabe. They're facing each other, new beginning in Osaka, blah, blah, whatever. And a little something, like you mentioned, like promote the match. Like this is supposed to be, the winner is supposed to be challenging for the number 2 belt in the company, and both guys have been absent. Like I almost forgot this match was happening until I pulled the card up. It's like, it's so like a non-factor right now.
I haven't forgot about it because they did the big angle, and I've been thinking a lot about the implications of Tsuji holding both titles and what future challenges based on the parameters that he tried to like lay out, and whether they even stick to those or not moving forward, how that all affects things. I will say, I think the match is going to be fantastic just because, considering the guys involved right now, this man, Andrade, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, even though there are negative implications, but he's fucking juiced to gills. Physically, I do worry about like his, longevity, because we've seen guys that start to look the way he does, the anabolics and the gas. The vascularness, and it's not easy on the heart, and it can have long-term, and who am I? I don't know anything about steroids, but he clearly looks like a guy that went from, being in good shape to being like in godly shape out of fucking nowhere. It's like, holy crap. Maybe it's just hard work and dedication. I don't know. But at the same time,
that post-divorce, motivation.
And at the same time, I'm not even, it's a slippery slope, because I'm not fully opposed to the use of steroids in professional wrestling. I do think that it's bad for the health of the performers. I do think that it can create a negative environment where everybody is required to be on them to be able to be utilized, and that's negative. But I'm not as down on it from the standpoint of professional sports in like real competition, like especially in combat sports like MMA and boxing, because there's life and death someone that's juicing and then they're kicking and hitting and elbowing you,
right?
Not the same thing. Right. And it's like wrestlers are performing together, and it's an aesthetic thing, so it's more about health and creating and not being toxic, as opposed to like safety. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think initially when this all was popping off, I kind of felt like originally like, okay, well, Gabe is going to play some sort of like defender of New Japan role again. And we're getting ready to put him and Tsuji against one another. Most likely based on how everything, felt. I initially I thought it was going to be Tsuji and Gabe at the New Beginning earlier this year. That's what I thought. And it didn't play out that way, but we still have that New Beginning in USA. And I feel like whoever wins this match is probably going to be challenging in Jersey. And then initially I thought it was going to be Gabe, and maybe that would even be like his quote unquote send off, the big last, or at least a spiritual one, final big match with Tsuji, close out their rivalry. But I'm not convinced that with the push that Andrade both got in New Japan, but more importantly from Tony Khan in AEW, and he's been beating Swerve, and he beat Kenny Omega, and he looks like a god, and they got like, you know, OnlyFans girls like rubbing him on the outside and shit like that. I'm not convinced this guy is doing a job outside of the company to anybody right now.
Yeah, and this is going to be right before he faces Hangman on Saturday in Australia. So yeah, I think that he has all the momentum right now, kayfabe and politically. I could see him getting the win. And then also, too, this is another technically United Empire versus Unbound Company matchup. Andrade still aligned with UE, Gabe Kidd with the Unbound Company. And also something to think about, too, like you mentioned, that New Beginning USA. Even though Gabe has been on AEW TV last year, we've seen on some of these American New Japan shows, he doesn't quite get the reaction that he does in Japan. And so
he's not over in America, or at least he hasn't been on New Japan shows up to this point. That might have changed a bit with his recent AEW runs, though.
Right. However, though, I still feel like Andrade would get a bigger reaction from like a quote unquote casual wrestling crowd that you're trying to draw to this wrestling show. I feel like that for America, that would be the bigger match, is to have Andrade versus Tsuji.
It is the bigger match. And it is a big building, and I don't think they've done great with the tickets. And you got to remind me, because I don't remember what I say week to week. Did you listen to the episode that I did solo with when you weren't here?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay. Either that week or several weeks after, did I kind of explain why I'm not going to Trenton?
You
I don't remember if I talked.
Yeah, you briefly mentioned it.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one thing that you have to take into account, is like, it's a very far building from the two major airports in both New York and Philadelphia. And the Trenton airport is tiny and very limited hours. It's not an ideal destination for the traveling New Japan fan, you know, the abroad fans. So, but because it is sort of in that tri-state area, I think that the idea is we're going to try and draw from like New York, draw from Philadelphia, draw from New Jersey, and kind of that northeastern area. So they're probably counting on a drive-in crowd. And if you do have Andrade, I think that is the match that is going to be much more marketable to that level of audience.
Yeah, especially with the push that he's been getting, like you mentioned on AEW. Yeah, beating Swerve, beating Kenny, getting ready to face Hangman on Wednesday. Like, there's a lot of momentum around him. A lot of what he's doing on Twitter has been, you know, popping people. So yeah, he's definitely buzzing right now, and that would probably be a really big name to add to that card to get people out to that show.
Now, here's one of my concerns, or at least I just want to put this out there early. I feel like, and I could be wrong here, you know, the booking in New Japan is it's more tumultuous. It's not as easy to always predict and be right as it has been in the past, but we do still have this conundrum that we've talked about from the beginning. You know, you do a double champion situation. How are you going to rectify that long term? You know, and I have this feeling that in the event that Andrade wins, it might potentially be signaling Tsuji dropping the world title later in that same night, because I struggle to see a scenario in the States where Tony Khan is going to, in this scenario, I don't think Tony Khan allows Andrade to lose in the States to Tsuji. And I don't think New Japan would allow Tsuji as the IWGP champion to drop the global title to Andrade in the States that would hurt his credibility. Even if he's still the world champion, it's problematic. They might just be getting ready to job. And the one argument against this is like, well, Tony Khan did just allow Takeshita to drop the belt. And it's like, bigger stage, different situation. It's very clear that as of right now, they've never had the level of plans for Takeshita as they do for Andrade right now. It's kind of comparable, but not exactly the same thing. I'm concerned that if Andrade wins here, that means Tsuji's dropping both these belts this month quickly.
So you think he would do double duty in USA?
No, I mean if Andrade wins in this match, then that might be a key indicator that Tsuji's dropping the title later that evening. The IWGP to Jake Lee.
Oh, gotcha. You're saying he loses here and then
he's gonna lose there too. Because I don't see Andrade losing. I don't see Tsuji retaining here and then going to Jersey and beating Andrade. You know, I just don't think that AEW has that much vested interest in the guy to where they're willing. They already gave up one of their guys. They're not going to give up two of their guys and let it be in the States and everything like that. That's just, I don't see that happening.
So prediction here. So you're going on Andrade?
I am. I think that I think the politics are going to be in play here. And I also think there's a vested interest from New Japan. Now, for the time being, of course, this guy's on his best behavior, and he's always been very tumultuous and had issues at a lot of ever since his, Lucha days, ever since he came stateside, he's had a lot of issues. Actually, probably more so since NXT, right? Because he was there. He played nice for a long time in NXT, but since those days, very tumultuous. This stuff could still end up blowing up in AEW and New Japan's face long term, but for the time being, he's getting pushed. I don't see him losing. I think he's beating Gabe here, and it's starting. And now my gut is making me feel like, God, Tsuji's maybe losing his title here.
Yeah. Also, this is Andrade's first singles match since being back in Japan as well. He's only worked tag matches so far, so I highly doubt his first big, highlight singles match he loses also. So yep. So another United Empire win right there.
Oh my God. I think I'm booking United Empire to sweep. Yeah. It flies in the face of what I said earlier.
Well, next up, another United Empire versus Unbound match. We got David Finlay versus Callum Newman. Probably the most heated portion of this faction rivalry. Wild, crazy brawls dating back to World Tag League and been continuing all throughout the beginning of this year. Lots of rumors speculating around David Finlay's contract status. A lot of rumors that he is getting offers from both WWE and AEW, so he could be potentially on his way out. There was also a great interview that dropped on NJPW1972.com today where Finlay is talking about Unbound Company and talking about, he didn't really think that a new faction was starting. He thought that just whenever War Dogs and Unaffiliated were together, they would be called Unbound, but not that be a whole new faction. And so kind of sharing his thoughts about that. He also had comments about Evil leaving and talking about if I lost to Aaron Wolf in his first pro wrestling match, I would leave too. So lots of interesting tidbits and nuggets there from Finlay. So it's going to be really interesting to see if he is leaving, is this the moment here to put over Callum Newman, or is he staying and this is a way to kind of get him back into the mix?
He might be staying around. But I think even if he stays around, the single most interesting thing you can do is have him lose to Callum Newman. Now, granted, it could hypothetically be seen as I don't want to call it a burial because it's not quite that, but a demotive loss. Like, it definitely lowers his status in the company. But that's needed from time to time. You know what I mean? Like, you need to sometimes take certain losses that will give you something to grow back into as a character. If you're just always, I mean, granted, obviously everyone wants to be Bob Holly. You know, they want to get the belt,
beat everybody,
and beat everybody. But since the company's not doing that with him, that's the one thing we've talked about is David Finlay's not in a position where the company is putting him in every main event, putting the title on him and keeping him at the very top. And if you are just the guy who can't beat the tip top guys, but you can beat the guys that are ascending, you are what we call a gatekeeper. That's what a gatekeeper is in combat sports. You don't want to be the gatekeeper. You want to be the champion. And so you kind of got to break out of that status. And the best way to do that sometimes is to take a loss if you're going to get that win back. And that's the real question is like, you know, he takes the loss to Callum Newman. Is there a trajectory for him to, and this is all assuming he's sticking around, which he may not be, but if he does, taking the loss here, at least it's not, okay, well, he wins again. Now, where does he go from there? We don't know. Of course, there is the other way you might want to think about it where, let's say that Tsuji does retain and you are still going to play off of this heat that's potentially brewing between War Dogs and fake LIJ. Maybe he needs to get the win here to kind of put Callum a little bit in his place and set himself up to be the de facto number one contender for Tsuji because, yeah, we know that one singles match is going to determine the white belt challenger, but we kind of don't have anything slotted for a future IWGP title challenge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, New Japan Cup is right around the corner, so there probably won't be a defense until April.
You don't think they might do something at the anniversary show?
Maybe that they're also doing New Japan Cup matches, I think, on that anniversary card as well.
They typically do. And another thing to keep in mind, remember last year, they did, it's a little different because he's a dad, but they did Nagata versus Goto.
Yeah.
During the New Japan Cup, during one of the quarterfinals night. And I loved that show. I would love the idea that maybe there's somebody who can become a number one contender and just
challenge that night. Yeah.
Well, it's already established they're a number one contender. They just don't go in the cup. They've already got the title shot locked up. And especially if we're on a short timetable where it's like, we kind of got to blow this off and we need to get David Finlay out of here because he's on his way to Orlando or Jacksonville, where Florida, period.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way you need to go about it. I don't know, but my gut is telling me Callum.
Yeah, and I think also if you go with Finlay, I think you could also have Tsuji lose because then that builds up heat where it's like, all right, you thought you're supposed to be this big leader. You swindled my faction. Like, I'm going to show you what a real leader is, and I won. I'm going to challenge Jake Lee and get the belt back for our group, kind of a thing.
Could also be another scenario where he doesn't go for the title at all. They jump fucking Tsuji post match for failing.
Yeah.
And it's just a few, and then it's the breakup of, Unbound Company or whoever it is that's going to jettison off from them so that we can set up this short-term feud to get Gabe and Finlay and whoever else might potentially be, Clark on their way out, just gone.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they need to do.
Yeah.
Kind of selling me a little bit. It would be interesting the way I'm booking it. In my mind, everybody from UE is winning. What would that say if potentially the one guy who's like kind of supposed to be poised as like the future leader, he takes a loss, and the only Unbound Company guy that wins on the evening is Finlay,
Yeah.
the War Dogs leader.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. But I don't know. I'm leaning towards Callum Newman. I feel like he's been doing really great work in this feud. He's really developed this character, and the push has been working. I think he's doing the best work that he's been doing in New Japan. The promos have been good. I think it's really a time to elevate him and utilize him, sign a multi-year contract. They also teased the Will Ospreay feud at some point in New Japan. So I think you continue to elevate him. So whenever you do that Ospreay match, it's as big as possible.
And since they have Andrade technically a member of United Empire, but he's not going to be around full time. It sounds like he's just coming in for select dates very selectively. With you potentially wanting to elevate United Empire as a force, you might need to have Callum Newman get this monumental victory to take that next step.
Yeah. And there has been, a lot of talk about him, wanting to do what Ospreay couldn't do and beat Finlay and kind of get him out of the company. So I'm wondering too, if Finlay is going, do you do an angle where he just beats down Finlay, the rest of UE comes out and they like bloody and batter Finlay, and he's gone?
Could be. You would wonder what the fuck is Unbound Company doing at that point. Like, they're not going to ride for their boy, but like,
well, War Dragons would have lost. They're all beat up. The other guys would have all had their matches that are unlost. And
bro, listen, if I lost a match earlier in the night and I'm in the back icing up and one of y'all from Social Suplex is getting jumped by, a Voices of Wrestling motherfuckers. You think I'm not going to be out there throwing bows? Like, come on, bro.
Well, we are a better tight knit group than
you're gonna see me like Ultimate Warrior running down the fucking with a chair over my head, running at full speed. Like, yeah, bro. Like,
Unbound's got that LIJ-ism, mixed in the DNA.
Oh man, yeah, this is a little bit of a tough one. And
they are tied in a record right now. They're both 1-1 in singles. So this is going to be a tiebreaker.
It does feel like if Callum Newman wins here, that could maybe be the end of the entire program, which would speak to an earlier questions. Like, what if they're just going chalk? Like, guys that are on their way out are just losing. And Callum Newman just picks up the win here. I don't want to be got too much because I remember when Jeff Cobb was on his way out, but still picked up wins because they weren't fully done with him.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be like the most WWE? Let's say he is going, I don't know where he's going, but let's say he is going to WWE. What if they did that shit again where it's like he wins here and then he's still got some final dates and he's supposed to put over Callum, and then they're just like, oh no, you got to go work NXT, and then they don't ever do that shit,
Right.
I hope nothing like that happens.
Like, we need him right away. Sorry.
Right. Maybe for that reason, maybe for that reason alone, the guys that are on their way out should just all lose because New Japan's been burned in the past by, kind of counting on these guys to honor their commitments and dates, and they give them a win so that they can set up a bigger loss. They get pulled away, fucking Hogan and Vern Gagne and Vince. Like, no, you're not finishing out your dates. We need you in the Garden.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like, and also I don't know what their plans are, and also depending on what the book looks like, especially going to New Japan Cup, but I feel like there's bigger upside in pushing Callum Newman right now over to Finlay. I think having Callum Newman have a great New Japan Cup run, and potentially even winning New Japan Cup run, and winning New Japan Cup is something to think about. Yeah.
The other thing though is like, okay, Callum Newman wins here. That might potentially speak to Tsuji needing to retain.
Mm-hmm.
Because if Jake Lee wins, then the two most meaningful heavyweight singles matches on the undercard, if you had all United Empire win, it kind of handicaps someone like Callum Newman from taking that next logical step and potentially challenging for the title. The one thing that might go against that is, again, New Japan Cup is right around the corner. So we don't necessarily need an immediate title challenger, but at the same time too, it's like if he's going into the tournament and he's potentially a favorite and Jake Lee is the champion, how does that work?
Yeah.
And one last thing I will say that could speak to what a lot of people have speculated about, like, is Jake Lee long-term for UE?
Right. Yeah.
So there's also that to think about. A lot of intrigue, but you kind of know they're probably going to do the most logical, chalk basic shit with the book. We're like trying to think of all the, potential eventualities, but it's like, they're just going to do the standard shit they always do, most likely.
Yeah. I feel like we're Doctor Strange. Like we're trying to think of every single possible scenario that can come out, but there's only one is happening. We have a question here from Def Triangle 720. He said, outside the last two matches, do you think Callum versus Finlay is the most crucial match on the card? The match will be telling the world if Callum is going to be the next guy up or if Finlay is here to stay.
I don't know if I fully agree with that, because I think hypothetically the outcome could differ from the sentiment in both cases. And what I mean by that is Callum Newman could still take a loss here. I don't think it's ideal, but he could take a loss and still be poised for huge things. And, and at the same time, David Finlay could win here and still be on his way out. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's necessarily a perfect, this points to this, but he's right. Both of those things probably are very telling.
Yeah.
You're a pro at running your life, at committing to your workout, at showing up every day. At Bombas, we're pros too. Pros at making socks. Our sport assortment has specialized socks for whatever sport you're committed to. Running, hiking, golf, Pilates, and so much more. Made with sweat-wicking yarns, blister-fighting details, and targeted arch support. Bombas Sport is pro-level socks from the pros of socks. For another pro, you. Go to bombas.com/audio and use code audio for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com and use code audio.
I do think that the next match we're going to talk about could potentially end up being one of the most crucial outside of the semi-main and main, and that is the never openweight title match, Aaron Wolf versus Ren Narita.
Yeah, I'm very, it is very crucial, and that one is crucial in so many ways. This is something where I don't feel like everybody that has talked about this match, and I haven't heard too many people talk about it, but like when I have heard them, I feel like everyone has very open and shut feelings about what is going to play out here. And I'm not as sold on the likelihood of the most likely scenario playing out here.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. I've heard a lot of Ren Narita hate going into this match and people not being happy with him being the guy challenging Aaron Wolf and him taking over How the Torture and just the fact that he's getting pushed at all. I've seen a lot of negative talk about him and the potential for this matchup.
Yeah, so I think what a lot of people's feelings are, and it's probably the case, where they're basically saying like, hey, Aaron Wolf, they put the rocket pack on him coming out of the Tokyo Dome, and he can't really afford to take a loss this early, especially not to a guy the caliber of Ren Narita. So like he needs to keep his momentum. He needs to pick up the W here, and they need to have the match laid out in a way, in a structured way, to where he's continuing to progress and improving and looking better than he did even in the Tokyo Dome, which honestly, I will tell you, I feel like unless they do a lot of smoke and mirrors, I don't know if they're in 1 month, who knows? He is a world-class athlete, but in 1 month, I don't know if he's going to be exponentially better than what we saw in the Tokyo Dome. I think it's going to be incremental. But at the same time, the idea that Narita, a guy that's already challenged for the IWGP title twice and is clearly at this current moment the highest in the hierarchy of the House of Torture with Evil leaving, the idea that he couldn't potentially just unseat this guy from the title to continue a long-term story and program with Aaron Wolf, I don't think it's that far-fetched.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And I know people have mentioned there is a fear that Aaron Wolf wins too much and people reject him, and that you kind of want to set some kind of heartbreak or downfall for him to overcome and come back. However, I don't know. I still feel like it's too early to end Wolfomania. I think that he needs to get another win here. I feel like part of this sold out house is because of him and the momentum from Wrestle Kingdom. He's been all over, still the TV shows, promoting New Japan all over the place. So I definitely think he's a key figure to have. And then also you can still draw with him if he loses here, but I think it would be better to have him build momentum. And especially, some years they don't put all the champions in New Japan Cup. So if you keep the belt on him, you could have him not in the cup because he's a champion, and that's a way to protect him in March as he continues to build up and learn.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Now, here's the thing is there is the big question, okay, they're saying House of Torture is going to continue. I don't know that that's the case, but if it does, much in the same way that people were asking for the longest time about who's going to be the leader of United Empire, what's their future? Everything's precarious. Now that has shifted to House of Torture. There's no evil. And there are a lot of people that are very doubtful about Narita's capability to be the top guy in that group and to lead a faction and have, kind of be a star. And maybe there is something to that, but I think the thing is he's one of the Reiwa guys. You have to sort of imagine that they're gonna, at some point, probably try and kick the tires with him to some degree. But that's not to say that, they might have somebody else in mind to be brought in as the new leader of House of Torture. Who that is, I don't know. I didn't. There's been a lot of speculation. I know there are those fans that think Jake Lee probably fits the bill, the most. But if for the time being, if you don't have somebody and you want to go with him, Ren Narita might make sense. Does he need this victory to fulfill that role? Not necessarily. I think there is a situation where he could lose the match and then him and his cronies still end up, this isn't ideal, but who knows how much heat we're really going to be getting on the show. So maybe this is the one big heat spot. They do something to embarrass and lay out Aaron Wolf. I don't know. But the one upside of him beating Aaron Wolf, and I agree with you, I think it probably is too early because I don't, it's if he loses, does that make him too ordinary? Right.
Mm-hmm.
But he's going to have to lose that belt sooner rather than later. And if you build it up the right way and you're trying to make money off of it, great. But you also could make it something where it's built up too much and it could potentially be better to just rip the fucking Band-Aid off and get it out of the way before it becomes something that they don't know how to book their way out of with him, because it's all right, we don't have any more challengers and we're not ready to push him as a main eventer. We don't know what the fuck to do with him. And now he's got to lose and he's never lost. And how do we, it's the Goldberg situation. It's how do we do this?
Yeah. And we mentioned a lot of the other singles matches. I mean, potentially, you could have the winner of Finlay or Newman be a guy that challenge. If you don't want them to go the world title route, you could have them be a guy to challenge Aaron Wolf if he's going to retain. I kind of like the idea of Narita losing here, and that's the motivation to kind of redo How the Torture and being the evil way is not working for me anymore. We got to not necessarily become a babyface, but we need to go more of the Suzuki-gun route than the How the Torture route.
I would love a story like that, and I think that's very creative. And hopefully, someone from the committee is listening and translating this shit, and y'all can have that one. That's a freebie.
You're welcome, Charlton.
Last week I don't remember what I said, but I said something about Chris, and I thought it was really fucking funny. What if that's a rolling bit? Every week we're all right, Chris, so here's what's happening.
Here's a plan. Send this one up the chain.
That's just funny. But I think it's a little bit more of a tough one than people are anticipating, just from the implications. And here's the thing about it. Who created this sort of, because they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. It's if Aaron Wolf wins, he's still champion, but now they still have to kind of figure out, okay, what's how do we maneuver this guy in a believable way while still fostering him as he is essentially a green boy?
Mm-hmm.
And if he loses, it might be too early. People might lose faith in him too early, and it's all for naught. And he's just a guy at that point. And then on the other hand, you have Ren Narita, and if he wins and takes over, there might be those people who are just doubters and haters and unbelievers, and maybe they're right, who are like, he's not ready for the spot. He'll never be ready he's not the guy. Or if he loses, then it makes House of Torture look terrible, and they don't have a leader, and their most senior guy they're kind of in a, again, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And you know whose fault all of this is? Evil's. I know it's funny, but think about it. The guy that went out on his back and did all of these favors to make Aaron Wolf look like $1 million left right at the time where they're getting ready to do this program with him and Narita. And if Evil was still around, hypothetically, there wouldn't be as high stakes, and there wouldn't be this issue about, it would be an open and shut case. Narita needs to lose, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And if he did win, it would be like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
But because Evil's gone, it's created a very tenuous situation. And he's kind of, I know everyone was like, oh, thank him for what he did for Aaron Wolf. But it's like, it's kind of put him in a fucked up situation, the next month by just piecing out.
Yeah. And you could have even had like Evil being involved in the match and kind of continuing that. And I think you could have built up a big rematch with Evil and Wolf 2 down the line, but
bro, that's the first time I've ever heard of a match being laid out that's been suggested with Evil that I would actually that I'd have any anticipation to see.
Yeah.
I had no anticipation for the rematch with David Finlay. I had no anticipation for the rematch with like Naito back in the day, but now you're like, yeah, him and Aaron Wolf might run it back one day. It's like, oh, shit.
Yeah, I'm going with Aaron Wolf here. I think it's too soon to beat him. I think you continue to build it up. There's a lot of guys on the roster that are, scratching and clawing for a spot. I think there are some compelling things. The Bolton match that people want, I think that's a very compelling match. You can definitely tell a story of, the amateur wrestler versus judo and what's the, true martial art kind of thing or whatever. I think that's a really big match to build up. And some other guys that I think you can have him go through. I mean, you could do like him versus Harley Jackson in like a Korakuen match. I think there's guys you can kind of feed him until it's time for like Dominion.
Kojima.
Oh, hold on. But yeah, you build them. You can give them some guys kind of build up till you get to like Dominion time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the right call here is Aaron Wolf, but because I can't foresee exactly where they're going with the creative in any of these situations, which is a good thing because we've complained in the past about how lackluster and formulaic a lot of their booking has been. And suddenly there's excitement. There's shifts with the alignments of characters and elevations and guys leaving. Hard to know where they're going next. So my big question coming out of it, if he does win, is going to be like, okay, what's next for Aaron Wolf? Obviously. But then it's like, what's the future of House of Torture? That's also going to be like the big thing.
Yeah. Also, another reason I'm going with Wolf 2 is we've booked a lot of heels to win here so far. Like United Empire, United Empire is pretty much going over in every match. Like the only bay faces that are winning so far are the Never Six Man, but that's because it's a bay face per bay face match.
I think it's a response to the positive outcomes related to the January shows. And there needs to always be like kind of a course correction. And the other thing too, is we've seen in the past where heel groups elevate and Ghetto likes to push a lot of them to win. Now, the fact that we have them winning almost everything kind of tells me that we're probably wrong because even though he'll have a lot, he might have a group win, multiple titles on the evening and have 3 wins or 4 wins. Usually it's a case where they don't all win. Like there's still someone taking a pinfall loss. So, Hiromu's probably going to be standing tall, something like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that is interesting that we're believing so much in United Empire that we've got them got them clean sweeping the whole entire fucking show.
All right, so that could take us to the semi-main event for the evening, IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team title match. The Knockout Brothers, Oscar and Yuto Ice, taking on Shota Umino, Yuya Uemura, Rough Storm. And pretty big deal for the tag title match to be the semi-main event of a show. I can't remember the last time that the tag titles were semi-main event in a show this big.
I can't recall. I mean, obviously in the States when Golden Lovers wrestled, the Young Bucks in Long Beach, that was a main event and it was a really big deal. I feel like, I could be wrong here, but I feel like, well, again, I was going to say the Young Bucks versus GOD. I feel like that was high up in the card, but now that I'm remembering it, that was in the States too. Can you think of a time where, you know what it would be? Just off the top of my head, and I'm sure there's other examples, but I'm just thinking of it. Times where established teams like Bishamon took on big stars, like when they wrestled the Mega Aces. That's probably an example of like where they were at the very top of the card.
Yeah, or like a Golden Ace. I'm sure maybe Tanahashi and Ibushi probably.
Nah, they weren't that high up. They were only champions for 2 shows, and they dropped the titles to Dangerous Techers, and they were high up, but they weren't this high up. And it wasn't as big, as high profile as KOB's gotten in such a short amount of time. Yeah, I think it's more so when established tag team champions face off against like the main eventers of the company. That's usually the time. I can't remember the last time where 2 established tag teams that are just tag teams for the time being are semi-main event on a New Japan show.
Yeah. Pretty big deal, and kind of shows you just how popular KOB has become and the great work they've done pushing those guys and getting them over, and just the great work this rivalry has done. I feel like there's been a lot of emotional investment domestically and abroad for this whole feud, and it's produced a lot of great matches. We've seen some stuff, a tag title challenge at the end of the year, World Tag League matches, and now they're Umino and Uemura getting another crack here. And yeah, I've really enjoyed this feud. It's been one of the most compelling things to watch the last few months, and especially these road twos and the interactions between especially Yuto Ice and Yuya Uemura.
Yeah, and I should retract what I said earlier. I said high up on a New Japan show for a tag team match, and obviously, like, we just saw the tag team titles headline on 1-5. So what I meant to say is one of the biggest shows, like a pay-per-view level show.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we've seen stuff like this on like a New Year's Dash or like a Kazuna Road, stuff that's just a C tier, like just above like Road 2 levels. Yeah, we've seen tag teams headline those, but like this is semi-main event on, one of the biggest shows of the year. That's rare.
Yeah.
I've loved the KOB run. I wouldn't be surprised if they retain, but because it's the second time they're challenging and I feel like they've got things in store for them, I'm very confident that Umino and Uemura are winning. And it just makes the most sense to me that KOB are both going to get positioned for like a singles mini run going into New Japan Cup.
Yeah, and the fact that, Umino and Uemura have already lost twice to KOB, so they lost in the tag title challenge, they lost in World Tag League. This is third time for them, and they have done a great job kind of building them up and kind of building their resilience up, and I think, it's a perfect opportunity for them to finally, beat KOB, get the win, and then you push Umino and Uemura in this tag team while you push Ice and Oscar as singles in New Japan Cup, and then maybe you do the big rematch at Dominion with these guys, and then you get KOB back on the belts.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable they come back for those titles. Win, who knows? I think my guess is as good as any, but I think getting the titles back on them by Dominion so that they're like the established champions once again going into G1. And it kind of gives them a little bit of an out where it's like they're big stars, but they don't need to be like, it's going to be interesting to see those two guys in the G1.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like if they don't have titles, then you're going to be like, man, Yuto Ice needs to fuck everybody up and run through this shit. But if he's got the tag team title on him, then it's like, okay, he's going to have a respectable run and
go 5-4.
Yeah. You know what the deal is. So I could kind of see it going that way personally, but yeah, I think Uemura and Umino win here. And I think they still, at one point, you know, I had kind of speculated it should be a situation where these two guys form this kind of power team and run concurrently with one another for a long period of time until it blows up, similar to like the 1 year run of Tanahashi and Nakamura back in like 2004, but, or 2005, I can't recall. But now it's feeling more like, no, they probably just need to have a mini thing where it's like they run, they're champions. They're partners, but they're not perfectly on the same page. And then it gets to be too much to where it's like, bro, who's going to run fucking Hantai? Which one of these guys is it going to be? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like getting the titles on them is a great catalyst to get to that story. And I could, you know, we're speculating about who's next, and that's, you know, potentially United Empire. I do think a 1 month reign with them just dropping the titles might be too soon. But, you know, one way you could get there is like they drop the titles and then they're set up for a rematch and then they don't win the titles back. And then that's like the falling out. You know what I mean? Maybe that's a way to go. Yeah.
And we have a question here from Gentlemanly Dragon, longtime listener coming back in the fold and saying that he's getting back into New Japan. Says, what do you guys think of KOB in their future, together or separate? They're definitely the new faces for me who grab my attention the most. I like to see them get a few nice defenses. I like the tag division and seems to be getting attention.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you know, what you're saying there is nothing that we haven't already said a million times. And obviously the awards that they've gotten and the amount of attention that they've garnered in such a short period of time, it's right on the spot. Like, the thing though, is they've already had a few nice defenses. So I'm kind of okay with them dropping the belts here because I know they're going to get the titles right back. Of course, maybe there are those people who are like, they're not established enough. They need to go on a legendary reign, you know, and maybe there's something to that. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the thing is like, they are going to be, I think, a team for a while. So I don't think you need to like, you know, blow the load right now and give them the monster tag title run right out the gate. Like they've already established themselves. They had a great World Tag League. They've had defenses. They had that great main event New Year's Dash. Yuto Ice got that great promo. I think it's okay for them to lose right now. And then, like we said, come back around Dominion, give them another title reign, and have them go strong the rest of the year with the titles. Give them their Tokyo Dome title match, and then maybe break them off again there and do some single stuff after next year's Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, I like that booking.
Another question from Def Triangle 720. Do you think we get a new challenger for the tag team titles no matter who wins in Osaka?
Yes. I mean, you could do, let's say, I mean, obviously I don't think if the challengers win that they're entitled to get another immediate rematch, unless there's something really controversial that occurs there that necessitates it. But the only reason I would see an immediate rematch would be, you know, KOB loses and then maybe you want to justify it that way. But, I think because we've got some other tag team matches lower on the card, it's pretty telling that we're going to get new challengers.
Yeah, like we already said, like War Dragons versus Okan Hinare feels like de facto number one contendership match, so I expect the winner of those to come out. You could also do a thing where the winning team of the never 6-man match, like if Bishamon and Bolton win, you could have Bishamon kind of come out and want to get double belts, or if Team DK wins, you could have Zach and Oiwa come out and want to run it back with KOB. So they're potentially in play, but it's probably going to be Okan Hinare or War Dragons. And that's going to take us to the main event for the IWGP Heavyweight title. Yota Tsuji will defend against the silent jester Jake Lee.
When did that become his nickname?
During this tour.
I don't think I noticed that they're calling him that. Okay, cool. Well, you know, the build was fantastic for a bit there. And then after they established that Tsuji, you know, Jake Lee was standing tall in all of the preview matches and doing everything in his power to back Tsuji into a corner to force his hand to accept his challenge. Great. They did that. And then after that, it just really cooled off. And every preview match that we saw after that, I mean, they still did do like the angle, you know, by the bridge and the attack and everything, but most people didn't even fucking see that. It was just a picture for many people. I thought that some of the like interviews and promotional videos that they did were pretty good. So it's not like a total flop in terms of like their follow up and promotion the last few weeks, but it's, to me, certainly a lower caliber than what we were seeing from some of those road twos, you know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's interesting from that side.
Yeah, it's definitely cooled off a little bit, and it kind of feels like sometimes for bookers, like they're building it up and they have a good few weeks, and then like they're getting too close to the show and they like ran out of ideas. It's like, all right,
they peaked too soon.
Yeah, it's like, all right, what, you know, whatever. Y'all just, you know, do whatever until the big show's only a few weeks away. Do whatever you can.
And again, we got your money, kid.
Right? Yeah, the house is sold out. Like, y'all did the good work. Don't worry about it. Go out there and cut, you know, have fun promos with each other. Do whatever.
Yeah. So the you know, that addresses the build. Okay. Now there's also sort of like the implications, you know, Tsuji kind of got established as like this, you know, the savior of New Japan. He beat the outsider Takeshita, won both of the titles in the Dome, brought back the IWGP Heavyweight title and lineage and intercontinental lineage, apparently, you know, and is doing all this great work that's getting people excited. But Jake Lee is the guy that kind of jumped him during his quote unquote crowning achievement, and they got business to settle. On the flip side, Jake Lee's been gone for all of this time. He's just come back from, you know, his lengthy exodus from injury, and now he's back. And United Empire, like we've talked about so much on this show, is being established as this main, you know, play, like as a heel faction, a main player. And he is, I wouldn't call him the leader because they haven't established a quote unquote leader, but he's the highest status guy that they have in the group currently outside of Andrade, who's kind of doesn't count. So it is a little bit of a crossroads match. Jake Lee's been the guy standing tall in most of the previews. Tsuji's kind of not himself been laid out, but
his team's losing end. Yeah.
Yeah. They've been on the losing end quite a bit. He's only just recently started to win some of those preview tags. And then you have to kind of consider what we've talked about. Tsuji's a double champion. How do we get out of the white belt, black belt scenario? You know, New Japan Cup is around the corner. Unbound Company is very much in a tumultuous place with all of these different contract situations and the on-screen kayfabe potential bubbling issues with, you know, LIJ and Bullet Club. There's a lot of moving parts at play here. And this is before we even talk about, can Tsuji get a good match out of Jake Lee?
Yeah, like we talked about last week. Yeah, that's going to be the big test. I think for both guys. Yeah, for Jake Lee, obviously there are a lot of naysayers, and especially, you know, based from his runs in All Japan and Noah, and people who are just totally against the guy and think he's absolute nothing. So I think it's a big test for him to kind of prove he can go. And then for Yota Tsuji, as a world champion, it's your role. Do what Kento Miyahara did. Get some great matches out of this guy. You got to be able to get great matches out of guys who are maybe not on your level. So I think, it's definitely a big test for both guys. A really big test for Yota Tsuji because, they put the company on this man's back. They put, they're kind of riding on his shoulders right now. And I don't think you want him to flop in his first big main event like this.
Yeah, it's a big test. It reminds me a little bit. It's not quite the same, but this is there are echoes of Naito versus Kenta. Back in 2020, Kenta, a guy who, integrated into the company, but made his name outside of the company and was a champion outside and
Noah Trash.
The Noah Trash. And he jumped Naito and stole his golden roll call. And then they did big business, a month later. And some people really like that match. But for me, I think the blood was dramatic, but the match was it had a great finish and was just so overly long. And I don't love that. I'll never go back and rewatch it. Tsuji, mentor from Naito, or the mentee, direct lineage from LIJ. This is his first really big established run. And then you got Jake Lee, an outsider, a guy kind of returning. He's been in Noah. He's been in All Japan.
Zen Nihon Trash.
there's some similarities there. And I think that's not by coincidence. I think some of that is by design. Mm-hmm. You mentioned, can he do what Kento Miyahara did? And don't get me wrong, Tsuji's an incredible talent. And I don't know if Kento in 2026, I haven't watched him in a big singles main event. Well, he had a great one back in December, so there's that.
Yeah, I did watch the Talos match.
How was that?
It was okay. I mean, it was more of a little bit more of kind of the big man, small man, a little bit of American style. But I mean, I thought it was a fine main event and him working over Talos' knees, and I thought Talos did fine.
How terrible is it that our boy dropped the junior title over there?
Yeah,
the world junior title.
Our man Atsuki.
I feel bad for our buddy over there. He's probably upset.
Yeah, he was probably
pissed. For the longest time in the preview and the lead up to this, I just thought there's no fucking way in a million years that Jake Lee is beating Yota Tsuji, especially just because it's Jake Lee. He screams challenger of the month, first easy guy for Tsuji to kind of get out of the way to establish this run. And, there's a lot of people that are belaboring the idea that Jake Lee is going to join the pantheon of the very short list of guys that have held the major world titles in the big three. There's very few guys, and Jake Lee might very easily join that group here in short order. But for me, the things that are making me feel like maybe Tsuji could drop the title here is, number one, the long history of New Japan giving short-term title reigns to guys during their first reign.
Yep.
Number two, the issues surrounding Unbound Company as it relates to David Finlay and company that might have some bearing on this match and provide a new direction for Tsuji for the time being. And then number three, the fact that he's got that white belt, and I don't know how they get around him, but I think he's wrestling Andrade. I think Andrade's going to beat him. So how do you get around that without devaluing the IWGP title in the process? Those are the three things that are making me nervous about all of this. And then the fourth thing is, we've talked about how they're setting up United Empire. Jake Lee is the most high profile guy in the group. If he wins, we're talking about it's not always just enough. We've talked about how okay, they need to do creative things. They need to switch things up and do new rosters and everything like that. But it's not just enough to create a new group with new members. If you really want to go with them, you got to push them. And there's no better way for them to push them than like have these guys go on a fucking sweep, like the way that, like, I remember Bullet Club doing this at New Beginning in like 2015, 2016, where they like just clean sweeped everybody that night, and AJ walked out with the title over Tanahashi. They might do something like that here.
Yeah. So right now we got all of United Empire so far winning how we've predicted it. And so for me, I feel that leaves it up to Yota Tsuji. I think like you have them all win, and then Tsuji is like the one unbound guy that gets the win. So he kind of holds the credibility for the group, for himself, and kind of the momentum he's built. And then you've elevated Jake Lee, who's a world title challenger, and then you've elevated the whole group because they've won. And so I don't think it really hurts the group to have Jake Lee lose when everybody else wins, especially if you're going to have like Callum go after the world title next, and then you have Hanare and Okan go after the tag titles, and then you have Jacob Austin Young and Akira go after the junior tag titles. Like, you have all those guys win belts and kind of prop the group up while you still kind of figure out who exactly the leader is going to be.
So maybe, I'm banking on this idea of Andrade winning just because I'm having trouble imagining him taking a loss. But if you need to steer more towards the United Empire, more towards the Unbound Company rifts, then maybe Gabe Kidd does need to win that match to really set up that big match with Tsuji. It might not be as marketable in the States, but in kayfabe, it probably makes good sense.
Yeah, and maybe I feel like they are trying to start booking the U.S. shows again towards a New Japan audience. It seems like they've dropped the strong branding. They're bringing over a lot of the big guys, like Tsuji's going to be on the show. And so, yeah, do you go with the more New Japan fan-based match and with Tsuji and Gabe, especially if it's going to be Gabe's potentially last match? Is that the send-off for Gabe, and you kind of bring the rivalry to America and do the big match there?
Well, I'll tell you what. I've seen Gabe Kidd wrestle live. I've always been impressed. I thought the match that he had with Ishii was fucking phenomenal in Chicago, even though people disagree. It's hard to find someone. I know there's freaks out there that like New Japan more than I do, but I've been doing this close. We're going to be coming up on 9 years. So it's pretty established that we are some of the most diehard fans when it comes to this product. And between the two matches, if you told me that, make your way out to Trenton and you can either see Gabe versus Tsuji or Tsuji versus Andrade, I gotta tell you, like, I'm much more inclined to go see that Andrade match. And it's because we've seen the Gabe and Tsuji match 3 times just last year alone, and Gabe's not hot anymore.
Man's not hot.
If Gabe was, if the AEW shit wasn't going on and Gabe was still hot, coming off of the Kenny Omega match, that'd be that's where I'm like, fuck, I gotta figure out how I'm going to make my way to Trenton, New Jersey, but it's not.
Yeah. And even the matches that they've had last year after the one big one never reached the heights of the New Beginning match.
That's because Tsuji never put the trunks back on. He wore the long boys every time after that. I do think it's a good point that you brought up, though, is like if Jake Lee wins here, and I alluded to it earlier, but it's like, and Callum's winning, and you might want to push Callum. It creates a conundrum about New Japan Cup and future challengers. But again, we've also kind of speculated of like, everything's not 100% kosher with United Empire either, even though they're much more unified as a group. Still a little iffy,
Yeah, there was definitely some issues that, Callum wanted to crack Ospreay, and Hanare and Okan were like, what are you doing, man?
Not just that, but also like Jake Lee is wrestling with them. He's there. He's not like throwing up the crowns. He's not doing all the things that they do. He kind of feels like this out of place dude a little bit. Like he's not fully ingratiated.
Yeah, and it seems like with UE, there's definitely some kind of link. Obviously, Ospreay brought majority of those guys in. You had TJ Pre bring in Jacob Austin Young. So it's definitely this through line with all these guys that are currently in the group. And yeah, he's kind of the one outsider. And I guess they did try to make a connection between him and Akira in their All Japan days, but it just, he doesn't fully feel like he fits with the group just yet.
One thing that is a positive for Tsuji's potential retention here. I know that I said that they have a long history in New Japan of first-time title runs, making them fairly short. Normally that's the case, but guess who that's not the case for? Ace level guys. Guys that are like not just going to be played. Like, it's not just, okay, we're putting the title on you and we're going to trial run it and see how it goes and give you, 2 to 3 months with one title defense. That's kind of par for the course. But like, if you look at like when Okada had his first title run, he held it like till Dominion, and he had 2 title defenses against Goto and Naito. Tanahashi won his first title in like May and didn't drop it until I don't remember when he dropped it, but it was a very lengthy reign. It's like 200 something plus days. Guys like that who get their first runs, they don't drop it in short succession. So this could also be a vote of confidence or non-confidence, depending on how they book him. If they book him as a guy that just drops it, then it's like, okay, we feel that we've elevated him and established him, but we're not crowning him the dude. We're just putting him in the upper echelon so we can come back around to him and see if it's going to fully work out. But if they keep him as a lengthy champion, then that means they're really committed to seeing if he can be the ace or not. Yeah.
And also, I think another theme that's happened here with Tsuji, like you mentioned earlier, was like he's a defender of New Japan. So he faced Takeshita at the Dome. He defended New Japan from the outsider there. Second challenger here, another outsider. So you can have this theme of, Tsuji is the guy. He is the representation of New Japan. He's going to defend this company from the outsiders. And so I think him having a win here, I think you really kind of build up, New Japan and that fan base and really have them rally around Tsuji. Like, this is our guy. Anybody that comes in from AEW or Noah or wherever, he's going to be the one. He's going to really mean, New Japan Ichiban. He's going to stand up for this company. And so I think he can do some great work there, kind of building up that reputation for him.
We got some questions.
Yeah. So Doc says, when do you guys acknowledge the silent gesture?
That's a terrible nickname. Next.
I think we have been acknowledging him, though. I do think Jake Lee has done good work overall in the bill. I think his in-ring work has looked good. I think him and Tsuji have some great chemistry. Clearly, they're going to tell a story of him going for that big knee, and Tsuji's going to be doing dragon screws like he did throughout this preview. And so I think that's going to be the big story, and hopefully it'll be a good match based off of the tag team stuff. It seems like they have good chemistry, like what we talked about before. What happens in the tag team does not always equal what the singles match is going to be. Next from Rambo, he says, Gato sometimes likes to book a short first reign for new heavyweight champions before circling back for a longer, more established run later. If somehow Jake Lee wins the title, how hard would the needle flip back to it's so over?
I don't know. What do you think? I'm trying to think of how to answer that one.
I don't know. I don't think it flips back to all the way to where so. I mean, I think there will be some people, because Jake Lee just has this reputation of being hated. I think there will be some people who are vocal and upset and be like, I'm not going to watch anymore. However, even if Jake Lee wins the belt, I still think there's a lot of great stuff that's happening in pretty much almost every other division. Like the tag title division is going to be set for something good. The junior tag title is going to be set for something good. Like never title stuff, I think is going to be in a good direction. Like there's a lot of good directions happening all throughout the company. Whereas I think a Jake Lee title run is not the absolute worst thing to happen. And I think that if he does win, I don't see him holding the title super long.
I agree to some extent. I don't necessarily think that if you put the title on the guy, that it is, we're in free fall, everything cool that they did is totally undone necessarily. But if the match doesn't deliver and it's very lackluster, and then they do the title switch and it's very clear that the fans in attendance are not receptive to this. And then there's not a good creative follow-up to, whatever it is that they got planned for a champion Jake Lee. It could be the cooling of all that goodwill and momentum they had coming out of the Tokyo Dome. And even if you're correct, Jeremy, where it's like they have great stuff going top to bottom, it doesn't, the truth is it never really matters how good the undercard stuff is. Everything about the long-term projection and success of a wrestling promotion falls on the main event scene. If the main event scene isn't hot, then it doesn't matter how much, for people like us who are committed, it's great. But if you really want to attract the outside audience and keep the, idea that this is a hot company, then you need the main event to stay hot. So I think there is some truth to what he is saying, that like it could undo a little bit of what they're doing, but I don't think it's a full on free fall where it's like everything's totally ruined. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. Next question from Gentlemanly Dragons. I'm not familiar with Jake Lee other than what English commentary has said about him since Wrestle Kingdom, but they seem to be pushing him pretty hard. It's reminding me of when Jay White came back as a Switchblade. Are you guys anticipating an upset and title change at the new beginning, or is there no way Tsuji loses this soon? Regardless, I think it's pretty cool the match is being presented this way, where it feels kind of unpredictable, at least to a returning fan like me.
Honestly, for me, because Jake Lee was winning every single, almost every single match since his return leading up to this and everything like that. And then just kind of considering their statuses and their backgrounds, I just was like, this screams to me, let's get sympathy on Tsuji so he can turn around and beat the challenger on the big show and then kind of continue on. But now that there's these new wrinkles, I'm starting to feel like, even though the program's not as hot as it was a few weeks ago, I am so much less convinced that Tsuji is winning, and it does feel unpredictable suddenly. And that wasn't the case 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was a hot program and I knew Tsuji was going over. Now I don't feel that way.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's very interesting. I think it's always good when you have an unpredictable main event world title match. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting and see how things play out there. Next question from MJ. What do you make of the overtures towards Jake from Tsuji to join Unbound Company?
What if at the end of the night they try and do something like, basically, I'm booking all sorts of angles in my mind for what they might do. But let's say Jake Lee loses to Tsuji, and then Tsuji gets on the mic and tries to do the like, hey, no hard feelings. You proved that you had the guts to take the fight to me and force my hand, but maybe you're hanging around with the wrong guys. You don't really fit in with them. You should join Unbound Company. And then the fucking War Dogs dudes come out and you think everything's good because like they're, with them or whatever. And then all those House of Torture dudes that you didn't that weren't on the show, they come out too. And then there's the standoff. There's Unbound Company. There's House of Torture. Jake Lee's there. And then they all fucking jump on Tsuji and they all start stomping him out. And then it's like the Bullet Club is still alive and it's under Jake Lee, Oh,
man. That'd be...
And then from there, United Empire is like, what the fuck? And it's just total chaos. It's like every single one of the factions that are actual real factions other than Hantai would get like turned over on their head. So that's what they should do. It's a really hot angle.
Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy. But yeah, I know a lot of people want Jake Lee to jump factions, but I don't know. I think that was just kind of some weird mind game stuff with Tsuji. I think that, I don't know. I kind of, even though he doesn't really quite fit the other guys. I kind of like Jake Lee in United Empire so far.
I do too. And I like the idea that, like, I don't understand whether these guys are all going to completely cohesively come together, or if there's going to be, and the thing is, they don't have like tension, but there's like an undercurrent of potential tension down the road. And maybe that will erode. Maybe they will start to gel together and form a bond. But so far from what I've seen is like Jake Lee doesn't have that bond with these guys, because he hasn't caught on to he's just not doing the same shit that they do.
Yeah.
And it's very understated. Like, no one on commentary is like pointing it out. It's not like something I'm hearing as a talking point, but I'm watching the shows and I'm noticing, like, yeah, he works well with them in the match, but when it comes time to throw up a crown, when it comes time to celebrate as a group, kind of just does his own thing. He like rolls out when the stuff with like
dancing around or whatever.
Remember when they did the angle at the end of at that, with that one match with Will Ospreay, like, he was kind of just off on his own. He wasn't like joining the OGs, but he also wasn't kind of rolling with Callum. He just was kind of like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, why is Will Ospreay here?
Yeah, it's like, this is none of my business. I'm just chilling.
He's like, whatever. So very interesting.
And next question here from West Commission 7252. After New Beginning, who do you think will have the most momentum heading towards New Japan Cup, and what format of the tournament do you see it being this year? The continuous bigger bracket or shorter bracket?
Feels like the guy that will have the most momentum is going to be the winner of David Finlay versus Calvin Newman, whoever that may potentially be. You could also maybe make the argument for like Andrade and Gabe Kidd, but because they haven't been around, I just don't feel that right now. But I think it's going to be Callum.
Yeah, that's probably who it's going to be. Also, I think from tag, I think Umino and Uemura are going to get a lot of momentum winning the tag titles.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as we haven't done like a breakdown of the dates announced, but if I recall talking to people that are into that, they pretty much said like it looks like it's going to be, the bigger tournament, multi-night, dragged out for,
Yeah, I think it's going to be at least 32.
Yeah, which I like that. So.
Yeah. Then Def Triangle 720. Do you see any surprise shifts in certain factions in Osaka?
I think that we might be off when we say United Empire is going to clean sweep them and everything. That's probably not the case. Somewhere along the line, we're going to be wrong there. But I think we're going to see shifts as it pertains to Unbound Company.
Yeah, I feel there's a lot of tension, especially with those Finlay comments between Unbound Company and Dave Finlay, or not Dave, Drilla Maloney's reaction to the group. So I definitely think that we could potentially, if Drilla and David stay, you could potentially have War Dogs kind of spin off and do their own thing, get some other people under that group. And he also says, do you see any changes to House of Torture after Evil leaves?
Well, his question, I'm wondering, like, so far we've seen them wrestle multi-mans and I haven't seen any difference. So from that aspect, no, they just seem like House of Torture, like they did last year during that brief period of time where Evil was like on hiatus and wasn't with the company. And there was like the rumor that he was gone and everything kind of just stayed the same. That's basically where they're at right now. But I think it would be imperative for them to implement some changes, or not that I want them to do this, lean heavier into the fucking shtick and really say, like, not only are we the same fucking House Torture we've always been, we're going to double down on this shit and be super evil, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah, you thought we were bad before? Wait now.
They got to do something narratively to establish themselves, because you don't want to be what United Empire has been for the past like couple of years.
Yeah. And I feel like House of Torture right now is like pretty much like a group of bums. Like under Narita, who do you mean? He's got Yujiro as like his second heavyweight in command. There's like Dick Togo, Fale. Like that group just is not
Chase.
Chase. Yeah, there's just not a lot of great guys in that group. So I think that faction definitely needs an injection of a shakeup and some fresh blood and some guys that can actually be credible threats in that group.
Last thing I will say, and we didn't really touch on this because we're talking so much about predictions, intrigue, storyline beats, and that stuff's great. On paper, putting all that shit aside, looking at the talent that's lined up and looking at the matches that have been booked, this is on paper one of the best New Japan major shows in a very long fucking time. And they've got all the potential in the world to have a show of the year contender here.
Yeah. If this thing hits the way that it can, yeah, it's going to end up being, I think it's going to be another, that this show won our show of the year for last year. And so.
And if it doesn't, it'll be fucking Jake Lee's fault. That is going to take us to, we got some news here. So Fantasticamania news, that is the next tour that's coming up. So this year's Fantasticamania will feature a tag team tournament with the following participants. Mystico and Mascara Dorada will be teaming together. Valiente Jr. and Futuro. Magnus and Averno. Atlantis and Atlantis Jr. Sho and Ultimo Guerrero. Satoshi Kojima and Okamura. Tiger Mask and Stigma. And Hijo de Stuka Jr. along with Shomakato. So we've got a established tournament here. First night of the tournament, February 18th. The semifinals is the 22nd, and then the finals will take place on the 24th. What does the winner get? Nothing. Every year they do a tag team tournament.
Bragging rights.
Bragging rights, yeah. You know, if it was Jim Ross, he'd be like, the winner gets a, some sort of monetary prize and, blah, blah, blah. But Shomakato send-off series, February 26th, he'll be wrestling Titan. The 27th, he'll be wrestling Averno. And then on the 26th and the 27th, we have big singles bouts in Cork and Hall. The 26th, Atlantis Jr. will be taking on Averno. Mascara Dorada will be taking on Hechicero. That one's going to fucking rock.
Yeah.
The 27th, Templario will be facing Ultimo Guerrero. And then in your main event, Mystico will face off against Soberano Jr. That one should also be very good. Mm-hmm. Less Commission 7252 says, is Ultimo Guerrero an honorary member of House of Torture with him being paired up with Sho in the tag tournament for Fantasticamania?
I don't think so.
He's the honorary leader at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, let's get some Ultimo Guerrero in here for the remainder of the year.
I think he's probably like Unk status for those guys. Other news in the Tokyo Sports interview that was recently held, Naito said that he did not tell Takahashi what to do during his process of, kind of figuring out what he wanted to do in terms of his contract status. But he also did talk about how there were other options that were emerging for him. And he doesn't like to tell anybody like what they should do with their career and what steps to take and things like that. He also talked about how for Hiromu, his choice to leave is like a positive choice. It's not coming from like dissatisfaction with New Japan as a whole, and that he has this new dream that he's trying to pursue. He's been talking about that a lot. Nobody knows exactly what that is, but it's going to be interesting. I don't know if that, we don't know if that means WWE or AEW or being a freelancer. The rumors are that he's going to probably work Noah and stick around with the Naito or, with the Tranquilos group. But he also did bring up a very salient point that people have talked about, saying, kind of questioning why so many wrestlers have been leaving New Japan. And he has this fear that it's going to continue unless New Japan investigates why it's happening, and expressed optimism that the departures could allow the remaining wrestlers in the company to step up, seize opportunities that they might not otherwise have gotten. So Rambo and Slam Pig did ask us, what do you make of Naito's comments about the NJPW talent exodus?
I think it's very interesting, and it kind of hits on what Okada was saying, some of his comments recently about the treatment from upper management, and is there some smoke to that fire? Also, we have two top former guys making similar comments. Is there some smoke there? And is there some changes that needs to happen with New Japan management? Obviously, we know putting Tanahashi in as president, part of that was to try and get Okada to stay. And it does seem like Tanahashi had plans to change some stuff up. So hopefully under Tanahashi's leadership, things do get a little bit better. But I think the more top guys you see kind of making comments like this, I think you got to kind of question, all right, is there something that it needs to change up more with management?
It's a very interesting comment, and we can draw off of examples of what we have seen and heard, some of the examples that Jeremy has presented. There's been these kind of hushed rumors for several years now about issues related to management versus creative and how they have different intentions and goals and they don't always align, and there's been miscommunication. Obviously, it's hard to discount the financial situation of the company as it pertains to like the economy of Japan as a whole, and the yen has been down, and their business coming out of COVID plus the changing wrestling landscape as it pertains to the arms race between WWE and AEW. And New Japan hasn't been immune to the fallout from that, in a lot of ways. That all being said, there could be other things that we are not privy to, that we don't know about, that we don't have insight to, that he is alluding to. Now, of course, that's conjecture on my part, but because we're not backstage and part of the office and, in these negotiations with talents, and I don't know what the vibe is with the locker room and what the company morale currently is. The one thing I will say is it seems like people are working their fucking asses off, and there's an energy coming out of the Tokyo Dome, which is really fantastic. But I do wonder if he's alluding to other things from a business perspective, and I'm talking monetary perspective, that we don't know about, or management treatment of talent or communication, things that we just don't know about. Like, he might be like trying to hint, like, what it kind of reminds me of is like when and this was a little different because we had some more insights that maybe other people don't have, but like when Hangman cut that promo on CM Punk and he talked about workers' rights, and it went over a lot of people's heads because they didn't know what the fuck he's talking about. I almost wonder if he's alluding to things that only really, really like insidery plugged in, probably people in the company really know what the fuck he's even alluding to. What if I get that feeling that he's not just touching on what is out there and known amongst the Smark crowd, but maybe he's like kind of poking and jabbing at people that he has issues with in the company from management.
Yeah. Just kind of scratching the surface of things that we've only been hearing about.
Maybe even things we haven't heard anything about.
Yeah.
Recently we saw that those exchanges on Twitter from with Ricochet, and he was talking, and it got a lot of heat, not only with fans, but apparently with management from within WWE, because he was so critical of his time there. And he started talking out about other talents and how they have felt. And I don't know if, necessarily all those individuals that he spoke for wanted their private thoughts like thrown out there. But I feel like when he was doing that, he almost was trying to speak up for those who are unable to speak for themselves. And I am wondering if Naito is in this moment using code to kind of basically say what a lot of the talents who have issues aren't able to say publicly. That's kind of, I don't know. I'm just trying to read it, and that's kind of the vibe I get. I could be wrong.
Yeah. It definitely seems like, he's pointing at something bigger that we might not have the full picture to.
The other thing too is it's Tokyo Sports, and it's Naito. They both deal in kayfabe. So how much stock can I put in any of this?
Right. Is that Naito's angle to like coming back later this year?
Yeah. So it's like we're giving our deep insights, and it's like this man's working because he's always fucking working because he's a gimmick. He should not fucking come back. I watched a clip. I swear to God. It is so funny because I see these clips where people are like, yeah, bro, he's popping the territory. Look at this aura. Look at these entrances. But, bro, I swear to God, he's fucking done. I watched a clip with him and Kenta just running spots. If I ran spots in front of Matt Sydal the way they were running spots, I'd have to like do like 1,000 squats or some shit like that to make up for how bad I was fucking up those spots. It was awful. I'm talking really, really, really bad. I guess I don't have a good comparison. What's that really famous match from NXT with those two girls that was really bad? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but the names are blanking for me right now.
Wasn't one of them like Maxine or something?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. Anyways, when you see that kind of wrestling where it's like these people they're not on the same page. They don't know what the fuck is happening and everything is falling apart. That was what was happening with Naito and Kenta. And they were both in shirts. It's a shit show, bro. I know it was just one spot. I didn't see the whole match, so maybe, but bro,
like, based on what we saw in Japan,
bro, this was worse than that.
Oh my, wow.
Yeah, you should go look for this clip. I'm sure it's not hard to find. It's on Twitter. Go look for this shit. You're gonna be like, oh my God, bro. Last thing here for the news, and then we'll jump into questions and close out the show. Athena and Shuri is set for the IWGP Women's title at New Beginning in USA. I really don't. It's a cool match. But if Athena was really about that life, she put her title on the line. So fuck her.
Well, I got some few questions here. First from Make Way for Slides. Has any idea what's going on with Tiger Mask 4? He's supposedly retiring this summer, but there hasn't been much focus on his matches or his legacy. He was supposed to show up in the U.S. for a show this past weekend, but had a personal emergency and could not attend. Do you think Tiger Mask 4 will get some additional time in the spotlight leading up to his retirement, or will he remain in a more low-key role to wind down his career?
Might have a few moments, here and there, but it's going to be one big show to send him off and bye-bye.
Yeah, we're not getting this huge, Tiger Mask tour like we got with Tanahashi. I think obviously he'll have some moments. I mean, he'll probably be in Super Juniors and, go like 0-9 or maybe 1-8 or whatever. And then he'll have like one last big show. And
is he not finishing up before Super Juniors, like in May?
I don't know when his exact. It's sometime in the summer.
I thought he said it, but I don't remember. My main thing is I just wanted that match with him and Tom Billington that didn't happen, and they said it's going to happen, but it is also GCW, so there's no guarantee it will happen. But other than that, it's like, I don't know what's going on with Tiger Mask. Who fuck knows? He's retiring, and he's gonna have a send off show like he was. It'll probably be very similar to the one that they did with
Nakanishi.
Like Nakanishi.
Yeah. Next question here from One Up versus CPU. Which New Japan wrestler going to Noah would tip the scales enough for you to watch Noah? For example, what if Shingo or Desperado went?
No. Let me put it to you this way. Jay White. I'm tired, so I'm like starting to brain fart here, but like Jay White, Will Ospreay, Aussie Open, Kazuchika Okada. Who else fucking went to AEW?
Kenny Omega.
Kenny Omega.
Young Bucks.
Chris Jericho, Hangman Adam Page. That's like 8 dudes right there. That's probably enough. They all went to AEW. That wasn't enough to make me watch AEW. Is there anybody in New Japan that is of the caliber for me as a fandom as like Kenny Omega and Okada? Those guys could go to Noah and I wouldn't fucking watch it right now.
Yeah.
So no, there's nobody from New Japan that would go and make me watch Noah. Like, I'm not watching that.
Yeah. It's one thing if a wrestler goes somewhere, but it's like, what is the reputation of the place they're going? Another example for me is like, I love Gunther. I love the Motor City Machine Guns, Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles, Ray Phoenix, Pentagon, Dragon Lee. I love all those guys, but I'm not watching Raw. I'm not watching SmackDown. Like, I don't care if they're some of my favorite wrestlers ever. Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate. Like, I don't like that product, and like that, the way they book, the way they wrestle, like, I don't want to watch that. So it's like, it doesn't matter who goes to WWE. Like, I'm not going to watch that. And same thing for Noah. It's like, I don't care if Shingo or, you know, Despy, Tsuji, whoever goes over there. It's like, Noah still has pretty bad booking. The wrestling is not all great. And I don't know, like, I'm a New Japan, like, fan. I'm doing a New Japan podcast. AEW is kind of like my main secondary. It's like, I don't have really that much time to be watching all these promotions, especially bad promotions. So, yeah, nothing's tipping the scale for me there.
I want to watch some more AEW, CMLL, or Stardom this year. I don't have the fucking time to do it, bro. Like,
yeah,
I missed the show from yesterday, the Road to from yesterday. And I didn't, you know, like, I don't have the time. And you know what? I thought a little bit more about it. There is one particular talent that if they went, I would watch, but it would have to be not just them leaving. It would have to be a particular specific scenario that would, if they went and they were pushed to the world title, I would watch it, but I also wouldn't watch the whole show. I would just, you know, dive in and watch their matches. Jeremy, who do you think is the one person, if they went over there and were pushed in the world title scene, I would turn over and watch Noah?
Taichi.
That's a close one.
Ishii.
No, Ishii. if they were to bring Ishii over and push him to the fucking moon and have him beat everybody in the company and work in the main event, then hell yeah, I would probably turn that on.
Yeah, just for that match.
Yeah, just for his matches. And then if they might be able to sucker me in if there's like a really...
Amakusa.
Yeah, like if there's a really good Amakusa, like, and Hiromu's there, then maybe I'll watch but I'm not watching the whole show. I'm going to like just pick and choose what I want to watch.
Yeah. Last question here from MJ. He says, this is a big, thick, meaty, beefy boy promotion now. How do you think the work in this era will differ from past eras now that the dirty, bulky boys are in the building?
It's hard to say because for so long we've had this what we call the never style, right? And it's kind of a derivative of what like All Japan's, you know, King's Road style kind of mixed in with like the very hard striking style of like New Japan in the 90s. And you kind of bring those two things together. And that's sort of like the amalgamation of like what the never style has been. But I sort of feel like even though there are some guys that are still about that life, there's just even the big beefy guys, they're not as Immortality 777 says the thought of Ishii and Kano in a singles match makes me feel funny feelings inside. That's hilarious. I also, I don't give a fuck that nobody likes him and that nobody wants to work with him, but like they need to figure out how to get
Nakajima
somewhere. I don't care where, like, but whatever. I feel like we're moving into more where these guys are going to be burly power guys throwing each other around and doing big power moves as opposed to being about that life and killing each other. I'm not saying they're not going to still do lariats and stuff, but it's like, it's not going to be like the heyday of like the most violent motherfuckers you ever seen trying to actually kill each other. Like it was in the 2010s and 2000s, probably not like that. I'm guessing we're probably going to move towards some of these guys that are a little bit bigger and a little bit more power oriented, kind of focus on bombs in that way. Big tossing matches.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we saw similar with Bolton and Hartley Jackson. Yeah, these guys throwing big bombs, trying to throw each other around, or what we've been seeing from like Yuto Ice and Uemura, where it's like they're running it, they got the smoke. It's a very heavy strike base kind of action.
All right, and maybe shorter matches, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, maybe more sprint style as opposed to the long, epic, you know, New Japan House style main events.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for the questions, and that's going to wrap it up for the show. So next week, we'll be back to review the new beginning in Osaka and cover all this news. So remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. You can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate. Click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media, on X and Blue Sky. Follow us at KI Strong Style, at Social Suplex, and at Jeremy L. Donovan, and at YB_Josh and Liger. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy, just Keeping It Strong Style. On YouTube, we are at Social Suplex. You can join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. Email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. And check out all the other shows that we have here on the network. One Nation Radio with Rachel Latta and James Boyd. All from the Elite with Floyd and Austin. Imps, AEW Adventure with MKG and Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Things. Tone Talk with Ali and Leah. And the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. And Joshing Around with Tim and Eric. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we'll catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.